Chapter 507. As Xiao Yan sensed the changes in the Wudong tree heart, he sensed that the signs of life in it were becoming more intense, and its self-consciousness was becoming clearer. Xiao Yan lifted his head to look at Lin Feng. "Master, is the Wudong tree heart going to turn into a demon?" Lin Feng looked at the Wudong tree heart rather interestedly and shook his head. "This is only a tree heart. It's not a complete divine Wudong tree, but a part of it that was stripped from an extremely powerful divine Wudong tree. After postnatal cultivation, it has the potential to turn into a demon, but it's not turning into a demon now. Although it has self-consciousness and is a brand new life, it's not a demon. If I must describe it, it's a spiritual monster, and it's an existence similar to Tian Qihua." Xiao Yan scrutinized the Wudong tree heart and mumbled, "This thing feels so powerful." "Not bad. Although it's still very young, its power and intent realm are extraordinary, and its potential is extremely high." Lin Feng nodded and suddenly smiled. "Lil Yan, you're no different from incubating an egg. You've incubated a pretty good treasure." Xiao Yan's expression immediately fell, and he looked at Lin Feng, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Master, I'll admit it if it's really an egg, but it's just a piece of wood. How can I incubate it?" As the master-disciple duo chatted, they watched as the Wudong tree heart's radiance dimmed completely, as if it had turned into charcoal. In the next moment, a dazzling red light suddenly erupted from the pitch-black Wudong tree heart, and a tiny figure appeared in the red light. Lin Feng and Luo Binghe looked over and saw that it was a little girl that looked like she was carved out of jade. She looked to be only 2 or 3 years old, her chubby little hand brought up to her mouth, sucking on a pink and white finger, her 2 big black eyes rolling around. When the little girl saw Xiao Yan, her big, bright, and quick-witted eyes sparkled with joy and intimacy. She spread her arms and pounced into Xiao Yan's embrace. "She's quite a cute little girl." Xiao Yan chuckled and hurriedly hugged her, but before he could even react, a clear child's voice instantly made him petrified. "Father!" His voice was crisp and melodious, clean and tidy. There was no hesitation at all. However, it was like a thunderclap on the ground. Xiao Yan's hand trembled. He almost threw the little girl to the ground. The eldest disciple of the celestial sect of wonders, who had always been fearless of heaven and earth. He stared dumbfoundedly at the little girl in his arms. The 2 people, one big and one small, stared at each other for a long time. Xiao Yan turned his completely stiff neck. "You! What did you call me just now?" His voice was a little unclear, as if his tongue was in a knot. The little girl was very straightforward. She called out again in a loud and clear voice, "Father!" Xiao Yan instantly had the urge to look at the sky at a 45-degree angle and cry speechlessly. To him, even if there was a primordial divinity realm bull standing in front of him right now, he would still dare to rush up and fight it. Even if it was the most dangerous place in the world, he would not frown. He would talk and laugh calmly as he moved forward. But now, Xiao Yan really did not know whether he should cry or laugh. "I'm still a boy, so how did I suddenly become a father?" After being dumbfounded at first, Xiao Yan came to a realization. Before the Wudong tree's heart gave birth to the little girl, he had been cultivating it by using his magic power, the Nan Mingli fire, the Sun Real fire, and the Nether Evil light to nurture it. Once the Wudong tree's heart developed a consciousness, it naturally regarded Xiao Yan as its parent. Xiao Yan flashed a smile that was uglier than crying. He wanted to correct the little girl, but he noticed that she was looking at him with a pair of bright and pure eyes that were filled with intimacy and joy. "Master?" Xiao Yan looked towards Lin Feng with a bitter smile. Lin Feng smiled, saying, "Only now have I discovered that you're actually the king of children under Master's tutelage. After Tian Qihua, looks like there's going to be another little tale behind you. Is this considered becoming a father?" Lin Feng thought rather unscrupulously in his heart, and then he saw the little girl hanging on Xiao Yan's neck like a little koala, blinking her pair of big eyes, her gaze looking over towards him, her gaze even more joyful. "Grandpa!" The stone room was dead silent at once, and the little girl's pleasant voice was the only thing that was still echoing in the air. Lin Feng almost vomited blood on the spot, and he stared blankly at the little girl. I still remember running under the setting sun that day. That was my lost youth. Lost, son of AB*TCH. I've become a grandfather just like that? Lin Feng smiled bitterly and glanced at Xiao Yan. Just like that, one became a father, while the other became a grandfather. Fundamentally speaking, Lin Feng's four symbols heaven-opening book's grand power conception of the universe's creation prompted the Wudong tree's heart to change. Xiao Yan also smiled bitterly. He hugged the little girl and coaxed her, "Call me Godfather." "It's Godfather, not father." The little girl put a finger in her mouth and looked at Xiao Yan in confusion. She did not understand why he had suddenly become a godfather when he was clearly a father. Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He composed himself and asked, "What's your name?" "I'm Tong the little girl answered in a childish voice. Lin Feng nodded. There was a rumor that, just like the phoenixes, where the phoenixes were male and the phoenixes were female, the Wudong tree was also a combination of the Wudong tree and the Wudong tree. The Wudong tree was male and the Wudong tree was female. They lived and died together. Lin Feng looked at her and said calmly, "Yes, from today onwards you're called Xiao Tong." The little girl nodded hard and answered loudly, "Yes." Xiao Yan was shocked and hurriedly said, "It's not Xiao Tong, it's Lin Tong, Lin Tong." He turned to look at Lin Feng with a bitter face. "Master, you really have to be merciful this time. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain it to Zhen. If she misunderstands that I'm related to the Wudong tree spirit and ended up having this little guy, I won't be able to explain myself no matter how many mouths I have." Lin Feng smiled and said, "It's fine. Just say that I named him. I'll take the blame for this." Xiao Yan glanced at Lin Feng when he heard this. His expression was tranquil, and he was dressed in purple. He looked dignified as a teacher. "Even if I say it, it'll only work if Zhen is willing to believe me." Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and looked pitifully at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head, no longer joking with him. Instead, he looked at little Lin Tong, who was still in Xiao Yan's arms. Lin Feng thought, "This little guy will be very amazing when he grows up." The master and disciple brought the little girl into the mysterious heaven eternal light paradise. Inside, Tian Chihua was still snoring, but when little Lin Tong approached, his snoring suddenly stopped. He turned over and sat up, rubbing his eyes in a daze. The fat baby, who was covered in mud and yellow, looked at little Lin Tong with sleepy eyes. The sleepiness in his eyes gradually disappeared. Tian Chihua, who usually ignored people and only focused on his fire, had a look of surprise in his eyes and started babbling. Lin Tong looked at him curiously. Xiao Yan put her on the ground, and the little girl ran to Tian Chihua's side with her short legs. Two chubby hands held each other, and red and yellow lights intertwined and flickered. Under the situation where the two colors of light shone and reflected off each other, Lin Feng and Xiao Yan could both clearly feel that their respective spirit energy was in a state of growth. The two little dolls were beaming with joy, and Lin Tong was also babbling like a lucky doll. They seemed to be able to understand each other's words, and they seemed to be incomparably joyful and happy. Xiao Yan looked at this scene and praised. Tong is formed from the Wudong tree heart. The divine Wudong tree not only has a strong vitality, but it also contains abundant and blazing fire spiritual power. Tian Chihua happens to love fire spiritual power the most. Although the Wudong tree heart doesn't have the 7 great true fires, the quality of the fire spiritual power is extremely high. Tian Chihua is formed from the Tian Chihua spiritual soil, which is the best soil for nurturing plants and spiritual trees. It can also nourish Tong. Ha ha, they complement each other perfectly. Lin Feng looked at the two little guys holding hands at his feet, skipping and running around him and Xiao Yan together, a smile also appearing on his face. The two of them can be a pair of playmates. He turned to look at Xiao Yan and smiled. From now on, apart from Tian Qihua, Tong will be under your care. Xiao Yan looked like he had accepted his fate and nodded helplessly. I knew you'd give me that order, master. In the following period of time, other than his own cultivation and pill refining, Xiao Yan had another job, and that was to take care of the two children. One day, Xiao Yan finally managed to get Lin Tong and Tian Qihua, who were clinging to him, to come down. Suddenly, Xiao Yan was stunned. He took out a sound transmission crystal and crushed it. Song Fu's voice came from the other side. Fellow Taoist Xiao? Xiao Yan had successfully advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir, subdued the three great true fires, and ended his seclusion. As the eldest disciple of the sect master under Lin Feng, he took over the responsibility of communicating with the outside world from Zhu Yi. Song Fu's voice was very polite. Although he was a Yuanian cultivator and Xiao Yan hadn't formed his nascent soul yet, Song Fu didn't treat him lightly. Fellow Taoist Xiao, someone asked me to come up the mountain and pay a visit to sect master Lin. I hope you can report this to him. Hearing the solemnity in Song Fu's voice, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. Without ending the communication, he went to look for Lin Feng. After meeting Lin Feng, he continued to ask, May I ask who they are and why they want to come up the mountain, Steward Song? Song Fu paused for a while before answering, They're from the Phoenix race of Infinite Mainland. There are two Phoenix race powerhouses, and one of them has already attained an indestructible demon soul. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng and Xiao Yan looked down at Lin Tong, who was playing happily with Tian Qihua. Even if you used your knees to think, you would know what the other party was after. After the Phoenix race had helped the Kuan Peng break through the manifold mystic ice, they had also entered the Kuan Peng's secret treasure. Their target must have been the Wudong Tree Heart. Unfortunately, the ancient Kuan Peng's revival was stopped by Lin Feng, and its remains were split into two. The demonic phoenix Black Jade, which had entered the secret treasure with the black-feathered Kuan Peng, was left in the black-feathered Kuan Peng's body, while the Wudong Tree Heart was left with Lin Feng. In ancient times, there was a saying that planting a Wudong would attract phoenixes. The phoenix race was arrogant and would not perch on anything other than a Wudong. They must have taken the initiative to visit for the Wudong Tree Heart. Although they didn't know why they were looking for it, they could tell that they were determined to get it from the fact that they didn't hesitate to enter the Divine Land's human world. Xiao Yan looked at Lin Feng and Lin Feng smiled faintly. Let them come. As he spoke, he waved his hand and a crack appeared in the void in front of him. Boundless purple chi passed through the distant space and directly descended into the Divine Land's boundless world, arriving outside the Sand State City. Chapter 508. Two spots of light flew out of the Sand Continent City, one red and one black. Both of them flashed with a golden radiance and emitted a powerful demonic force. However, this kind of demonic energy didn't seem ferocious or violent. Instead, it was noble and prideful, with a sense of transcendence, but it also seemed exceptionally arrogant. The spots of light landed on Lin Feng's purple aura cloud bridge. The purple aura rolled and brought them back to Jing Mountain. Lin Feng silently looked at the two figures in front of him. As the light and shadow changed, he could vaguely see the two phoenixes gradually turning into human forms. When the golden light dissipated, a man and a woman appeared in front of Lin Feng. The man looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was tall and thin and wore a red luxurious robe. His long hair was not tied up and casually spread behind his shoulders. His face was simple and he had an elegant aura. Beside him was a girl in black. She looked like she was only 13 or 14 years old. She had a beautiful face and a refined aura. What they had in common was that their eyes were extremely clear. They looked at Lin Feng calmly. They were neither servile nor overbearing. Their attitudes were gentle and polite, but they kept a distance. The middle-aged man said, "Are you the master of the Celestial Gate? I'm Fei Yi from the Red Phoenix race. Greetings." The girl beside him bowed to Lin Feng. "I'm Mou from the Black Phoenix race. Greetings, master of the Celestial Gate." Lin Feng's gaze landed on Fei Yi and he felt the demonic energy around him fluctuate majestically. It was not ostentatious, nor was it purposely suppressed. It just spread out like this, revealing that he has already formed an indestructible demon soul. Unlike the Golden Crow, Qiongqi, and other demon clans, where a great saint-level demon beast would be surrounded and killed by the human experts when it came to the vast land of the Divine Land, the Phoenix clan was a little special. They rarely entered the vast land of the Divine Land, and even if they did, most of the human cultivators would turn a blind eye to them. The Phoenix race had always been independent in the demon realm. They never intervened in the disputes of others. Because of their powerful strength, others were not willing to provoke them. All along, this race had pursued the policy of an isolated island and was almost independent of Tianhuang mainland. Although they were not completely isolated, they rarely interacted with the outside world. Because of this reason, the Phoenix clan rarely participated in the war between the human clan and the demon clan. Moreover, the Phoenix clan was noble and peaceful. Even if powerful warriors occasionally entered the Divine Land, as long as no one provoked them, the Phoenix clan would not cause any damage to the human clan. Therefore, in the past 10,000 years, the relationship between the Phoenix clan and the cultivation world of the human clan had been relatively harmonious. Of course, this was also related to the powerful strength of the Phoenix clan. Including the three Holy Lands, no one was willing to completely push the Phoenix clan to the opposite side of the Divine Land. Lin Feng's gaze shifted to the other side, and he looked at Mou as he sensed the fluctuations of her demonic energy. "She's slightly familiar. The phoenix that broke through the 1,000-year-old ice and followed the rock into the treasure trove seemed to be her?" With a glance, Lin Feng could tell that Mou was currently at the late-stage Demon King realm. Moreover, compared to the lifespan of the Phoenix clan, she was still very young. Being able to cultivate to this realm at such a young age, she should be one of the top geniuses even in the Phoenix clan. Long Yi, who had not fought with Yan Mingyue in the past and had yet to achieve an indestructible demon soul, Fox Yan of the Heavenly Fox clan, the Black Feather Rock that entered the treasure trove in an attempt to resurrect the ancient rock, and Mou in front of him. Presumably, they were the rising stars of the demon clan in recent years. At this moment, they had already risen and were only waiting for an indestructible demon soul to completely ascend to the stage. Among them, Long Yi was even one step ahead of them. While Lin Feng was sizing them up, Fei Yi and Mou were also silently observing him. However, whether it was Mou or Fei Yi who had already achieved an indestructible demon soul, they found that they could not see through Lin Feng at all. It was not that he was immeasurably powerful, but at this moment, in front of them, Lin Feng was like an ordinary person who had not cultivated Tao at all. The question was this possible? It was precisely because of this that Fei Yi and Mou felt that Lin Feng was unfathomable. At this moment, Xiao Yan had also come out of the mysterious Heaven-Time cave. Silently standing behind Lin Feng, he naturally fell into the eyes of Fei Yi and Mou. This time, they could see through the level of Xiao Yan's cultivation at a glance. There was no mistaking his cultivation at the late stage of the golden elixir, but Fei Yi and Mou could faintly sense that there was an extremely terrifying aura hidden in Xiao Yan's body. Fei Yi was fine, but Mou, who was already at the late stage of the Demon King realm and was only a step away from achieving an indestructible demon soul, actually felt a sense of danger when looking at Xiao Yan. It was as if this young man in purple clothes with black clothes on the outside had the ability to endanger her life. Although Mou did not show it on the surface, he was actually surprised in the bottom of his heart, even though there was a difference of an entire great realm between them. Lin Feng calmly looked at Fei Yi and Mou and faintly said, "What are the two of you here for?" Fei Yi straightforwardly said, "In the past, our clan had a supreme treasure called the Wudong Tree Heart. 10,000 years ago, we lent it to the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage. Later on, the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage perished in the Divine Land, causing our clan's supreme treasure to be lost in the Arctic Sea of the Divine Land. The Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage was the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage, who achieved the third level of the indestructible demon soul in ancient times. Previously, the current patriarch of the Kuanping clan, the Azure Sky Kuanping Sage, sent his son, Heiyu, into the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage's inheritance. My clan's junior, Mou, also went with him to retrieve the lost Wudong Tree Heart." As Fei Yi spoke, he looked at Mou, who was beside him. But in the end, a great change occurred and they failed. Fei Yi looked at Lin Feng and silently said, "This time, we came in the hope that the Celestial Gate Master can return our clan's treasure." Lin Feng smiled and did not say anything. Naturally, Xiao Yan, who was standing behind him, did not say anything either. For a moment, both parties did not say anything and the situation became a little awkward. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and his expression gradually became strange. He used his transcendence energy to transmit his voice to Lin Feng. "Master, is this phoenix trying to get something for nothing?" Lin Feng smiled. "That's not the case. It's just that this clan's way of thinking is like this. According to the Phoenix clan's moral standards and way of thinking, it's normal for me to retrieve something that I've lost. It's only natural for me to return it to its rightful owner, no matter what happened before. Even if you didn't snatch this thing from me, since you picked it up, you should return it to me. There's no such thing as a transaction. Don't think of asking me to repay you. I don't need to express any gratitude to you because it's mine to begin with. On the contrary, if I picked up your thing, I would definitely return it to you regardless of the cost. I might even take the initiative to return it to you." From the way Fei Yi, Mou, and the rest thought since they were young, this was a matter of course. After listening to Lin Feng's words, Xiao Yan grinned. To be honest, this Wudong tree's heart has changed hands a few times, so its ownership should have been redefined long ago. Does it really belong to him just because he said it's his? At the very least, it's his, but that doesn't mean others have to follow his moral standards. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth curled up into a light smile. So, since ancient times when the Phoenix race and other races have conflicts, it's usually because other people have provoked them, then they fight back. In a few cases, the Phoenix race initiates a fight. It's all because of the clash of ideas. Xiao Yan remained calm and collected, but he began to scrutinize Fei Yi and Mou. "Master, what are they doing? Trying peaceful means before resorting to force?" "Not really. I can only say that they're testing us. They want to see if we have the same ideologies as them." Lin Feng smiled unconcernedly. At this point in time, as long as it's not a completely irreconcilable conflict or a life-and-death enmity, then there's no power in the entire Heaven Primal world that will easily start a war with the Xian Gate Sky sect. No one was willing to provoke the Phoenix clan, but similarly, no one would easily provoke Lin Feng. Xiao Yan asked, "Master, then we?" Lin Feng replied faintly, "They don't have a say in today's matter, so there's no need for us to say anything. The person involved can make her own decision." Xiao Yan came to a realization. That's right. Tong already has her own consciousness, so she should make her own decision. Finally, Lin Feng instructed, "There's no need to inform Tong in advance, and there's no need to instill her thoughts in advance. Let her make her own decision." "Master?" Xiao Yan was a little surprised, but when he saw Lin Feng's indifferent expression, Xiao Yan revealed a thoughtful expression. The exchange of sound transmissions between the master and disciple ended. Lin Feng opened his mouth and said, "Go bring Tong over to see the two of the Phoenix race." Xiao Yan nodded his head, his figure disappearing on the spot. After Xiao Yan left, Fei Yi and Mo's expressions slightly relaxed. The awkward atmosphere just now was indeed a little awkward. Aside from Lin Feng and his disciple, Fei Yi and Mo were also secretly communicating with each other. Uncle, if the master of the Celestial Gate insists on not returning our Wudong Tree Heart, what should we do? Mo asked. The Tree Sovereign has been waiting for us. Fei Yi's expression did not change. After a moment of silence, he said, right now, the clan is also divided into two factions. One faction thinks that we should negotiate with Xianmen Tianzong and take back the Tree Heart through peaceful means. The other faction thinks that we should simply take back the Tree Heart by force and not bow to the greed of humans. Mou frowned slightly. The ideology of the human clan is too different from ours, Fei Yi said. The price of fighting with Xianmen Tianzong is too high, but we have to be mentally prepared in this regard. As the two of them were talking, they heard Lin Feng asking Xiao Yan to bring the Wudong Tree Heart over. For a moment they were relieved. After all, just standing in front of Lin Feng on Mount Yujing made them feel pressured. However, Fei Yi and Mou were slightly stunned when they heard the term Tong. Does this mean that the Wudong Tree Heart has already become a spirit and developed its own consciousness? Has it become a spirit? This was somewhat out of their expectations. However, the two phoenixes were still confident that as long as Lin Feng and his disciple did not stop them, they believed that they could successfully convince little Lin Tong to return to Infinite Wilderness with them. After all, that's her hometown, and her clansmen are there. Even if she hasn't become a demon, she's still a divine Wudong. Fei Yi and Mou exchanged glances as the same thought appeared in their minds. Very soon, Xiao Yan returned with little Lin Tong. The little fellow sucked on her fingers and looked at Fei Yi and Mou curiously with her big eyes. Her intuition told her that these two strangers were rather close to her. Fei Yi and Mou were instantly more confident when they noticed Lin Tong's gaze. The phoenixes and the Wudong had been companions for countless years, so it was impossible for their bloodline to be severed. Fei Yi was in a good mood. If the master of the Celestial Gate and his disciple don't interfere and let this little girl make her own decision, then there won't be a problem at all. Chapter 509. From Fei Yi and Mou's point of view, although little Lin Tong had interacted with Lin Feng and his disciple previously, it shouldn't have been long. Even if they had some feelings for each other, it shouldn't be able to overcome the attachment of blood relative. Little Lin Tong had an extraordinary background and was nurtured into a spirit by the Wudong Tree Heart. Although she was young and ignorant, she was extremely talented and could clearly sense the closeness between her and the other divine Wudong trees and the Phoenix clan. Therefore, Fei Yi and Mou were very confident that they could convince little Lin Tong to return to Infinite Wilderness vast land with them. Especially when they saw little Lin Tong's ignorant look as if she didn't know what was going on, Fei Yi and Mou's mood became even better. Looks like the master of Xian Gate and his disciple didn't tell her what happened in advance, so they definitely wouldn't have instilled thoughts in advance to affect her judgment. Mou thought, if that's the case, this master of Xian Gate is also a rather magnanimous person. He disdains doing such petty tricks. Fei Yi had the same thought. This trip was finally worthwhile. It's naturally for the best if we can avoid a conflict with Xianmen Tianzong. As they thought about it, the two phoenixes explained the purpose of their visit to little Lin Tong. Lin Tong nestled in Xiao Yan's embrace and sucked on her fingers as she asked, "After I go to Infinite Wilderness vast land, can I still return to the mountain?" Fei Yi smiled without saying anything, while Mou also smiled and looked at Lin Tong. "Of course you can. After returning to the Wudong Forest, we won't restrict your freedom. You can come out to relax, but for your safety, we'll escort you." Fei Yi nodded and thought, she's been together with the master of Xian Gate and his disciple for a period of time after all. It's normal for her to have some feelings for him. This child is very good. As they thought about it, they suddenly noticed that little Lin Tong's expression was a little off. Her smile disappeared and her delicate brows gradually furrowed. She interrupted Mou with a childish voice. "You mean, I'll be staying at your side for a long time and can only come back to see Daddy and Grandpa occasionally? Of course, the Wudong Forest is your home after all." Fei Yi and Mou didn't react at first, but they suddenly noticed the main point in Lin Tong's words and couldn't help but be stunned. Daddy and Grandpa? At this time, Lin Tong was already shouting, "If that's the case, I don't want it. I'm not going with you." Lin Tong stretched out her chubby arms and hugged Xiao Yan's neck. "I want to live with Daddy and Grandpa." Xiao Yan was half distressed and half dotingly rubbed her little head. "I've told you many times that I'm your godfather, not your father." He turned to look at the other side and saw that Fei Yi and Mou's expressions were as if they had swallowed a dead rat. Fei Yi took a deep breath and looked at Lin Tong, then at Lin Feng and Xiao Yan. "This child wasn't born naturally, but was nurtured by your esteemed master and disciple?" He quickly understood the reason behind this and immediately felt a headache coming on. Lin Feng lightly said, "This little guy is pure and innocent. I hope the two of you won't blame him for his rudeness." Fei Yi and Mou nodded helplessly. This time, they really didn't know what to do. If the Wudong tree's heart did not have its own consciousness, it would be treated as an object. Whether it was Fei Yi or Mou, according to their morals, it was natural for them to retrieve something that they had lost. However, the Wudong tree's heart had its own consciousness and turned into a spirit monster. It was an independent life with its own thoughts, so it could no longer be regarded as someone's possession. Of course, if it was someone else, they could disregard Lin Tong's wishes and directly force her, but that was clearly not what the Phoenix Association would do. Even if they really wanted to do it, Lin Feng was still standing there. If they had the guts to behave atrociously on Jade Capital Mountain, they would be annihilated at any moment. It's one thing for the little girl to go with you willingly, but it's another if she dared to snatch it from you. Fei Yi and Mou looked at little Lin Tong gloomily and were somewhat speechless. If Lin Tong was born naturally from the Wudong tree's heart, then the relationship between her and Lin Feng as master and disciple was at most the relationship they had during this period of time together. Children were ignorant. Although they were easily bewitched, they could still make a decision when faced with the natural bloodline relationship between the Wudong tree's clan and the Phoenix clan. Unfortunately, Lin Tong was not born naturally. Instead, she was nurtured and enlightened by Lin Feng and Xiao Yan respectively. Only then did she develop her consciousness and turn into a spirit monster. In her mind, Lin Feng and his disciple were the closest elders and blood relative. They were the people closest to her psychologically, whereas the Phoenix and the Wudong tree were ranked second. Whether it was birth or nurturing, Lin Feng and his disciple had priority over the Wudong tree's clan and the Phoenix clan in Lin Tong's mind. This immediately made Fei Yi and Mou feel conflicted. They did not want to force Lin Tong, but the goal of this trip was to bring Lin Tong back to the Wudong tree forest in Infinite Mainland. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not persuade Lin Tong to go back to Infinite Mainland with them. Let alone staying for a long time, the little girl was not willing to go even if it was just a short trip. She hugged Xiao Yan's neck tightly and looked at the two phoenixes with vigilance. She looked like she was looking at two human traffickers who were about to abduct a little girl. Fei Yi and Mou felt like crying when they saw Lin Tong's gaze. "Bring Tong over there to play first." Lin Feng opened his mouth and said to Xiao Yan at this time. Xiao Yan nodded his head, coaxing Lin Tong while walking away some distance. Lin Tong looked at Fei Yi and Mou warily before quickly burrowing back into Xiao Yan's arms. The two phoenixes did not know whether to laugh or cry when they saw that. Tong-er's meaning is very clear. This is her personal wish, and I will not interfere. Lin Feng said lightly. The two of you can stay on the mountain for a day or two and try to persuade Tong. But if she doesn't change her mind, then forgive me for not keeping the two of you here." Fei Yi and Mo fell into silence at the same time. Slowly, Fei Yi said, "In that case, thank you for your magnanimity, Mystic Gate Master. I'm afraid we will have to trouble you for another day." In the following day, the two phoenixes tried their best to persuade Lin Tong to go back to Infinite Mainland with them. At this moment, they no longer hoped that Lin Tong could return to their clan and only hoped that she could go to the Wudong Tree Forest. However, no matter how much the two of them talked, the little girl just shook her head and refused to agree. It was Fei Yi and Mo's fault for not understanding the situation clearly and speaking too confidently, causing little Lin Tong to misunderstand that they were plotting to separate her from her grandfather and father. This made the little fellow completely put the names of the two phoenixes into the blacklist. Even if the two of them now put their conditions more broadly, and the promises they made were more superior, the little girl would only think that they were deceiving her with flowery words. Little Tong had now transformed into a revolutionary warrior with an incomparably strong will, tenacious style, and firm stand. No matter what Fei Yi and Mo said, she would not budge at all, and would not budge an inch. Even Lin Feng and Xiao Yan felt distressed when they saw Fei Yi, a dignified great sage of the demon race, being overwrought with coaxing the child. "Master, why do they insist on taking Tong back?" Xiao Yan was a little puzzled. He now had some understanding of the Phoenix race's character and knew that this race despised deceit and hypocrisy. They were even more disdainful to do that. Since Fei Yi and Mo only promised to take Lin Tong to the Wudong Tree Forest and not to stay there for a long time, then they should be serious and not trying to deceive her with empty words. But why did they go through so much trouble to take Lin Tong back? Or perhaps he should ask, why did they want the Wudong Tree Heart? Lin Feng pondered and said, "I don't know the specific reason, but I'm sure that what they want to do must be done through Tong-er's help. In this matter, Tong-er is irreplaceable. Tong-er is the wood heart born from a female divine Wudong tree. The Wudong tree is the combination of a Wudong tree and a Tong tree. The Wudong tree is a male tree and the Tong tree is a female tree. They grow and age together and live and die together." He looked at little Lin Tong and said faintly, "Under what circumstances is Tong-er irreplaceable? There's only one possibility. Something happened to the male Wudong tree that she was born from back then, and they needed the Wudong tree to solve the problem." Xiao Yan came to a realization. Just like the soaring snow plume that little junior brother raised in the heaven-barren valley, they only have one partner in life and death. It's the same for the Wudong tree. Every Wudong tree will only have one Wudong tree as its partner in life, and vice versa? Lin Feng nodded and did not say anything. He thought to himself, without the Wudong tree will wither. Since the Wudong tree has lost its wood heart, it will naturally wither and die. The Wudong tree might be able to survive with the existence of the wood heart. However, the Wudong tree heart has been lost in the Kuan Peng's mystic treasure for 10,000 years. How did the Wudong tree survive these 10,000 years? While Lin Feng and his disciple were gossiping, Fei Yi and Mo were on the verge of tears. They talked until their saliva was dry, but Lin Tong still refused to return to Infinite Mainland with them. Helpless, the two phoenixes could only return to look for Lin Feng. "Master and disciple, please help to persuade her to return to Infinite Mainland with us," Fei Yi said helplessly. "We'll escort her back after a period of time and won't disturb her for a long time after that," Fei Yi said helplessly. They initially thought that the two of them could bring Lin Tong away easily. Who would have thought that they would have to ask for Lin Feng's help in the end? To the phoenixes, asking for help this time was not a matter of course. Instead, they were asking for someone's help and owed them a favor. Fei Yi and Mo were well aware of this point. However, they could not convince Lin Tong to return to the Wudong forest with them, so they could only look for Lin Feng for help. Lin Feng's expression was the same as usual and he was not arrogant at all. He merely asked indifferently, I need to know why you want to bring Tonger back to Infinite Mainland. Don't worry, Master of the Mystic Sect. She won't be harmed at all, Fei Yi said after a moment of hesitation. It's the Wudong Tree Sovereign who urgently needs her help. Chapter 510. Hearing the name Wudong Emperor, Xiao Yan subconsciously looked at Lin Feng. After some intensive study, he now had a better understanding of the Phoenix race and the divine Wudong tree. Of course, these two demon races had always been mysterious and had little interaction with the outside world, so there wasn't much valuable information. But even so, Xiao Yan has also heard of the great name of the Wudong Tree Emperor, because he is the current clan leader of the divine Wudong Tree demon race, a demon race expert who has long reached the realm of star-soul unity. As a plant demon, his lifespan is incomparably long. It is unknown how many years he has lived. Generally speaking, in Tianhuang continent, only the Saint Emperor of the demon race, who was acknowledged by all demons, would be called Emperor. For example, the last Saint Emperor of the demon race in Tianhaiyu was called Yu Wang. The Golden Rock Sage called himself Rock Emperor as an encouragement to himself, reflecting his ambition and confidence. Although his subordinates obeyed him, the other powerful demon races didn't acknowledge it. The Enchantress's junior brother, the Celestial Wolf Sage, had once mocked the Golden Rock Sage to his face. The situation of the Wudong Emperor was different from that of the Golden Rock Sage. This title was mainly an honorific used by the Wudong race and the Phoenix race. The divine Wudong tree was even more reclusive than the Phoenix race, and the Wudong Emperor hadn't left the Wudong forest for tens of thousands of years. He was powerful and old enough, but he usually kept a low profile and didn't have the ambition or invasiveness to conquer the world of demons. Therefore, many demons tacitly agreed to this title and didn't take it too seriously. Some demons who were closer to the Wudong race and the Phoenix race would even call him that. Listening to Fei Yi and Mo's simple introduction, Lin Feng and Xiao Yan found out that the Wudong Tree Emperor in the past naturally also had a companion Wudong Tree. But she met with a calamity 10,000 years ago, and the Wudong Tree Emperor could only protect her heart. 10,000 years ago, the ancient great sage of Kuanping, Ocean Kuanping, borrowed the Wudong Tree Heart but unexpectedly died in the divine land together with it, so the Wudong Tree Heart had never returned to the Wudong Emperor. The Wudong Emperor had reached the third tier of the undying demon soul, the realm of astral soul as one, which was equivalent to the third tier of the human primordial spirit fusing with the path. It was almost a world of its own, and it had basically broken away from the nature of living and dying together with the Wudong tree. Therefore, even without its companion, it had survived these 10,000 years alone. Lin Feng listened quietly, his eyes looking straight at Fei Yi. He did not speak, but it was equivalent to a silent question. Since the Wudong Emperor could survive without the Wudong tree, Fei Yi didn't say anything. Fei Yi and Mo looked at each other with hesitation on their faces. Mo wanted to say something, but Fei Yi shook her head and said, "Forget it, I'll say it." He turned his head to look at Lin Feng and his disciple, as well as at Lin Tong. He said slowly, "This matter is a humiliation for the Phoenix clan and the Wudong clan. Very few people know about it, so your master and your disciple are not aware of it. His Majesty, the Wudong Tree Sovereign, once encountered a calamity thousands of years ago, causing his vitality to be greatly damaged. Although he did not die, his injuries have lingered to this day, and it is difficult to completely heal. To temporarily suppress his injuries, he needs the heart of the Wudong tree, which is of the same origin as him, to cast an ancient curse." Lin Feng pondered for a moment before asking, "What will happen to Tong after I cast the spell?" The two phoenixes' expressions became serious at the same time. Fei Yi replied solemnly, "They won't be harmed at all. Instead, they'll be enlightened by the Wudong Tree Sovereign's power, causing their spirituality and arcane energy to rise to the next level." The Phoenix race had always been true to their word. They never lied or lied. They were the most trustworthy and secure group in the heaven primal world. After listening, Lin Feng slightly nodded his head. Xiao Yin secretly transmitted his voice to him and asked, Master, can Tong be considered the reincarnation of that tongue tree? If that's the case, wouldn't she and that Wudong tree emperor be? Xiao Yin swallowed the words an old cow preying on young grass when they reached the tip of his tongue. Tong is a spirit monster. She can't be considered a reincarnation of a tree demon, and she can't even be considered a clone. However, she can't be considered a bloodline descendant either. If I really have to say it, she's more like a master and disciple who have inherited the principles. Lin Feng said plainly, what she inherited is the concept of the principles that the tongue tree sovereign cultivated after it became a demon. With that as the foundation, you and I enlightened her spirituality. Then, she refined the original Wudong tree heart and turned it into a part of herself. She can be considered a member of the Wudong race. After Lin Feng finished speaking to Xiao Yan, he looked towards Fei Yi and Mou, opening his mouth and saying with a calm expression, Even though I have never met the Wudong Emperor, we can be considered to have been friends for a long time. He met with a calamity, because Tong was lost in the belly of the sea sky Kuanping, that's why he suffered for thousands of years. Now that Tong has seen the light of day again, it means that it's time for the Wudong Tree Emperor's calamity to turn for the better. Hearing Lin Feng's words, joy appeared in Fei Yi and Mou's eyes. Fei Yi cupped his hands at Lin Feng. My race and the Wudong race can't thank the Master of Mystic Gate for your righteousness. Lin Feng waved his hand. But I'll say this first. You must ensure Tong safety. After resolving the Wudong Tree Emperor's calamity, I want her to return to the mountain safe and sound. Although Lin Feng's expression was calm, Fei Yi and Mou's hearts trembled. Slowly, the two phoenixes nodded together. That's how it should be. Master of Mystic Gate, don't worry. At this time, Xiao Yan started conversing with little Lin Tong. At first, the little guy blinked his big eyes, and there was even a layer of mist covering his eyes. He asked pitifully, Grandpa and Daddy don't want Tong anymore? Silly girl. Xiao Yan rubbed her little head. How could Godfather not want you? This time, you're going to the Wudong forest to save someone. Once it's over, you can naturally return to the mountain to reunite with Godfather and Grandpa. The little girl sucked on her finger and asked in a childish voice, Save someone? After thinking about it carefully, she made a request, Then can Grandpa and Daddy go with me? Fei Yi and Mou looked at each other. Mou looked troubled. The Wudong forest had been sealed off for many years. No outsiders could step into it. Sure. Fei Yi pondered for a moment and said resolutely, The Master of Mystic Gate is righteous. You extended a helping hand to our two races and helped His Majesty, the Wudong Tree Emperor, to heal. You're a friend of the Phoenix race and the Wudong race. Your presence brings light to our humble Wudong forest. We should welcome you with open arms. Although Fei Yi had attained the indestructible demon soul realm, his position in the Phoenix race was not enough for him to make such an important decision. However, with the habits of the Phoenix race and the Wudong race, this was a decision that would not cause much controversy among the clansmen. Repaying favors was also one of the Phoenix race's main characters. Lin Feng said indifferently, I also yearn to go to the Wudong forest. However, I've been busy with mundane matters recently and have no time to spare. He sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, put aside whatever you're doing for now. You don't need me to teach you what to do when you head to the Wudong forest in the infinite mainland, right? Xiao Yan pondered for a moment and a clear understanding flashed through his eyes. Although he did not show it on the surface, he secretly smiled at Lin Feng. Don't worry, Master. I know what to do. I guarantee that I'll complete the mission. Lin Feng smiled and said, My eldest disciple, Xiao Yan, will represent me on this trip. Xiao Yan nodded and cupped his fists at Fei Yi and Mou. "Thank you for your hospitality." Fei Yi and Mou returned the greeting solemnly. "You're too polite. We should be the ones thanking you." Little Lin Tong had no objections after confirming that Xiao Yan would be going with them. Although he still subconsciously hid behind Xiao Yan when he saw Fei Yi and Mou approaching, he did not look at them as warily as when he looked at human traffickers. The two phoenixes did not know whether to laugh or cry. Be it Fei Yi or Mou, they were burning with anxiety, and could not wait to bring Lin Tong back to the infinite mainland. Since they had decided to help, Lin Feng and his disciple would not make things difficult for them. After settling his matters as soon as possible, Xiao Yan immediately set off with little Lin Tong, Fei Yi and Mou. After watching Xiao Yan and the others leave, Lin Feng silently stood on the branch of the profound sky treasure tree and pondered. A moment later, he asked, "Nan Hua, what's the matter?" A white-clothed youth broke through the void and arrived behind Lin Feng. It was the sex protector, Kong Nan Hua. He replied with a calm expression, "Sect Master, I've received news that the Shi and Yu clans of the Great Qin dynasty have been very restless recently. Both parties have suddenly become close." Shi and Yu clans. Lin Feng pondered in his heart after listening to Kong Nanhua's words. The Great Qin dynasty's aristocratic families are led by the 4 great clans. However, the Hua clan is very unsociable among them. The other 3 clans are of the same breadth and branch, and have even become in-laws. In particular, the Shi and Yu clans had the closest relationship. After that dual-pupiled individual, Shi Tianyi, had revealed his outstanding talent, the 2 clans had become even closer. This was something that practically the entire world knew of, and Kong Nanhua naturally knew of it as well. However, he had solemnly reported this matter to Lin Feng. Obviously, the relationship between the 2 great clans was extremely close recently, and had already reached an abnormal state. Since the day that Lin Feng took the little guy, Shi Tianhao, as his disciple, he knew that there would be a day where he would encounter the Shi and Yu clans sooner or later. This was because the conflict between Shi Tianhao and Big Stone, Shi Tianyi, was completely irreconcilable. Unless the Shi clan changed their ways and gave up on Big Stone, they were bound to become the background of Little Stone's path of destiny. If it was only Shi Tianhao alone, it would still be fine. However, Xianmen Tianzong had already become a colossus that the Shi clan was completely unable to face alone. If they could change direction now, the Shi clan would definitely change direction without the slightest hesitation. But unfortunately, they owed Shi Tianhao too much in the past, so much that they could only repay it by selling their entire clan's fortune. The results were the same no matter what. The Shi clan could only walk down this path to the end, and there was no need to even mention the Yu clan. Not mentioning the issue between Big Stone and Little Stone, many of the Yu clan's Yuanying ancestors had successively died at the hands of Xianmen Tianzong. About half of the clan's forces had fallen in the process of colliding with Xianmen Tianzong. Such hatred could be said to be absolutely irreconcilable. Is it the pressure from the Qin dynasty's purging of the aristocratic families that forced them to become even closer, or is it because of me? Lin Feng pondered inwardly. If it's because of me, where does their confidence come from? Chapter 511. Today, the Yu clan or the Shi clan were no longer a match for Lin Feng. To put it bluntly, the 2 clans combined would not be able to defeat Lin Feng with one hand. The reason why he kept them alive was that Lin Feng did not want to be a tool for the Great Qin dynasty, and also because of the Taishu Temple. Of course, the most important reason was that even if Lin Feng did not care about them, Shi Tianhao would naturally meet them in the future. Therefore, the unusual movements of the Shi clan and the Yu clan made Lin Feng feel a little interested. What do these 2 clans want to do? While he was still thinking, Lin Feng suddenly had a thought. Through the dermic power and divine sense that he left on Xiao Yan, he found that Xiao Yan and his party had been intercepted by others. The infinite wasteland land and the divine land were the two poles of the vast thousand world. The boundary power was so strong that even essence soul experts could not directly break through the void. For example, the Golden Crow Great Sage's guidance method and the Kuan Pung Great Sage's blood sacrifice method could directly travel between the two worlds, but they had to pay an extremely huge price. They would only use it once as a last resort. Therefore, after Xiao Yan and the others left Yujing Mountain, they went all the way south. Under Fei Ye's lead, they quickly moved through the void and went to the south of the Divine Land, which was connected to the infinite wasteland land. This was the fixed passage between the two worlds of the human race and the demon race. At the same time, it was also the front line where the two races usually fought. Although there was no large-scale war at the moment, there were continuous small and medium-sized conflicts. Human race cultivators often broke into the infinite wasteland land to kill the demon race, and there were also tyrannical demon race who rushed into the divine land to cause trouble in the human world. Previously, when Fei Yi and Mou came to the divine land, they also passed through this place. The group was rushing toward the boundary between the two worlds. Just as they left the Kunlun mountain range, there was suddenly a violent dermic power fluctuation in the space. Fei Yi, Xiao Yan, and Mou frowned slightly. Black light flashed in front of them, blotting out the sky and covering the earth as it swept towards them. Within the black light, there were faint cries of battle that shook the soul. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were roaring within it, and the sounds of battle shook the heavens. Above the thick smell of blood that was like a battle formation, there was also a grand will that suppressed everything. It was indescribably noble, as if it was the will of the heavens that ruled over the four seas. When the two were combined, he was like an invincible emperor who conquered the world, commanding his loyal, brave, and skillful troops to appear before Xiao Yan and the others like a torrent of steel. This black light instantly blotted out the sky, wanting to engulf Xiao Yan and the others. Fei Ye's expression was calm as he circulated his demonic energy, bringing Xiao Yan, Mou, and Lin Tong with him to retreat, wanting to evade the black light. Unexpectedly, a pale golden figure suddenly appeared within the black light. It was completely formed by light and shadow magic energy, wearing a golden coiled dragon armor and a golden helmet. His face was full of the majesty of an emperor, as if he was personally leading the troops into battle. As soon as this pale golden figure appeared, the black light soared, still encircling Fei Yi, Xiao Yan, and the others. A transformation-grade magic treasure? Fei Yi slightly raised his eyebrows, staring at the magic treasure's original spirit that had already condensed its body, which was the appearance of a golden emperor. Unfortunately, your owner has not reached the primordial spirit realm. I really don't understand why you are willing to be refined by him. The pale golden figure opened his mouth to speak, and his voice spread out like rolling thunder, with quite a domineering momentum. You don't need to know this, Phoenix. Fei Ye's expression still looked very indifferent. Hearing this, he nodded. Indeed, I don't need to know, it's just a waste of time. As he spoke, the demonic energy in his body surged, and with a flap of his wings, he set off a hurricane that was like a sharp blade that could split the sky, sweeping across the black light. The magic treasure's original spirit, that looked like an emperor, was not in a hurry. Riding on the black light, it kept turning, as if a battle formation was changing. The battle cries of thousands of soldiers and horses shook the sky, dispersing Fei Ye's attack. The shocking murderous aura and battle intent made the calm Phoenix frown. It was as if thousands of vigorous martial artists had gathered their blood, chi, and will together, condensing into a powerful will that could shock even gods and ghosts. It was incomparably brave, but at the same time it was also incomparably fanatical. Thousands of soldiers were only loyal to their emperor. Wherever the emperor pointed his sword, even if it was a mountain of knives, a sea of fire, or a sky full of gods and Buddhas, he would not hesitate to attack until death. Interesting. Lin Feng, who had witnessed everything through Xiao Yan's divine consciousness, became interested. Putting aside the cultivation of Xiao Yan and Mou, Fei Yi was the scarlet phoenix that had cultivated the immortal demon soul. Although he was not aggressive by nature, his demonic energy and supernatural powers were outstanding among the great sages of the same level. Moreover, he possessed the pure yang true fire that was unique to the Phoenix clan, making his combat strength extraordinary. More importantly, in addition to their own strength, Fei Yi and Mou had the backing of the Phoenix clan. Knowing the identity of Fei Yi and Mou, the other party still dared to block their way. This confidence, or perhaps madness, was worthy of praise. However, this person's cultivation was somewhat unexpected. Just like Fei Yi, Lin Feng could see that the owner of this magic treasure had not achieved the primordial soul realm. It was rare to see someone who had not achieved the primordial soul realm but could already possess a transformation-grade magic treasure. Back then, the Empyrean Walker of the Taishu Temple, Pang Jie, had the strength of the late Yuanying realm. His status was high enough and his background was deep enough. However, the magic treasure that he carried with him, the hexagonal sword, was only a spirit conception-grade magic treasure. Although the hexagonal sword had reached the peak of the spirit conception realm and its strength was quite extraordinary, the magic treasure's primordial soul had not been able to condense its own form. At this moment, the person who was blocking Fei Yi and Xiao Yan's way had a transformation-grade magic treasure, even though he had not achieved the primordial soul realm. It was impossible for him to refine it himself, so it was either given to him by someone or he had a heaven-defying opportunity to obtain a treasure left behind by a predecessor. Fei Yi's demonic energy surged and his attack became more powerful. Although his opponent had a transformation-grade magic treasure, the user could not effectively exert its power before his primordial soul second level returned to emptiness realm. As a result, he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position against Fei Yi, who was at the first level of the immortal demon soul realm. However, this magic treasure was extraordinary after all. It could fight with Fei Yi of the Phoenix clan with just its magic power and divine ability. In the black light, the true appearance of the magic treasure was gradually revealed. It was a large black flag with a huge emperor character embroidered on it. It fluttered in the wind with an astonishing aura. Fei Yi and Mou usually did not leave the parasol tree forest, so their understanding of the outside world was relatively limited. They were rather well informed about the news in Infinite Wilderness, but they were relatively uninformed about the news in the Divine Land. On the contrary, after accepting Xianmen Tianzong's job as external liaison, Xiao Yan had put in a lot of effort to understand the various forces in the human cultivation world in the Divine Land. After getting a clear look at the large flag, Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows. Indestructible Imperial Flag. Xiao Yan already knew the identity of the person who possessed the indestructible Imperial Flag, a transformation-grade magic treasure even though he had not achieved the primordial soul realm. The #1 expert of the Great Zhou dynasty's younger generation, Marquis Jing Huan. He was the Great Zhou dynasty's rising star. He had risen from a young age and made great contributions to the expansion of the Great Zhou dynasty's territory. Therefore, he had been conferred the title of Marquis at a young age and attracted the attention of the world. He had reached the late-stage Yuanying realm at a young age and was only a step away from the primordial soul realm. His talent was famous in the entire Great Heaven primordial world. In terms of cultivation, even the Great Zhou dynasty's crown prince, Liang Yuan, had to bow down to him. It was publicly acknowledged that geniuses of the same generation were just mediocre in front of Marquis Jing Huan. After his rise, between the Great Zhou and the Great Qin was suppressed by the Great Zhou to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. It wasn't until the dual-pupiled Shi Tianyi became famous that there was someone who could stand up to the great Zhou's Jinghuan Marquis. The thing that made Marquis Jinghuan despair the most was that apart from his shocking talent, he also had great luck, great fortune, and great opportunities. Before he reached the primordial soul realm, he had the eternal imperial flag, a life transformation Dharma treasure. Apart from that, he had endless treasures and many experts following him. It wasn't that he had never suffered setbacks, but after every setback, he would rise again rapidly and become even stronger. Not only did his cultivation increase, he could also obtain better treasures. However, apart from his cultivation talent, there was something else that was widely known. He liked to collect all sorts of beauties in the world. Not just humans, but even demon beauties were not spared. If one wanted to find a place with the most beauties in the world, it would not be Emperor Liang Pan's palace or Emperor Qin Shi Yu's palace, but Marquis Jing Huan's private residence. Xiao Yan's mind raced, and he told Fei Yi and Mou everything he knew about Marquis Jing Huan. The two phoenixes' faces immediately filled with anger. As expected, the Eternal Imperial Flag's artifact spirit said, Marquis Jing Huan has always said that the women from the phoenix race of the Infinite Wilderness continent are outstanding. He has long wanted to marry a phoenix, but he never had the time to go to Infinite Wilderness continent's parasol tree forest. He heard that a noble lady from the phoenix race has come to the divine land, so he specially came to ask for her hand in marriage. Whether it was Lin Feng, who was still on Jade Capital Mountain, or Xiao Yan, who was present at the scene, they all curled their lips when they heard this. This fellow made it sound nice, but how was this a marriage proposal? This was practically a marriage kidnapping. Lin Feng found it rather funny. Young man, you've got some ideas. I think highly of you. Blocking the road and forcefully snatching a woman from the phoenix race, I really don't know if you're extremely bold or absolutely confident. The strength of the phoenix race was well known, but Marquis Jing Huan had dared to forcefully block the road and take Mou into his room. Such behavior was truly condescending and completely disregarding the consequences. It could be said to be extremely arrogant and bordering on madness. He seemed to completely disregard the fact that there were countless experts in the phoenix race. It was rumored that there was more than one great demon at the third level of the indestructible demon soul realm, and they also had close allies like the divine parasol tree race. Even the entire Great Zhou dynasty would have to consider the consequences of angering the phoenix race and the parasol race. If the two sides were to start a full-scale war, it was even possible that it would trigger a new war between the two worlds. But this Marquis Jing Huan was doing it now, and he was doing it openly and without the slightest scruple. Even with Fei Yi and Mou's self-restraint, anger appeared on their faces. Fei Yi said coldly, "Ignorant madman, madness will be your doom." "I don't think so. Everything in the world belongs to those who are capable, and the same goes for alluring beauties." At this moment, a young man suddenly appeared below the Eternal Imperial Flag. He was dressed in luxurious purple and gold robes, with a golden crown on his head and a bright yellow belt around his waist. This was an item of the imperial family and was clearly bestowed by the emperor. Otherwise, even if it was worn by a duke or marquis, it would be against the rules and would be impeached. This was a crime of great disrespect. His figure was incomparably well proportioned, and he had short hair. His face was handsome, and his forehead was full. His temples were surrounded by a faint golden blood color, as if they were two real suns. Chapter 5:12. The temples on both sides of Marquis Jinghuan's forehead were like two real suns, and his qi and blood were as vigorous as the sun. Lin Feng was certain that this person's martial cultivation had already reached the peak of his current realm. Just like before Lin Feng had reached the primordial soul stage, his god of war clone had reached the limit of the qi and blood of a Yuanying stage cultivator. This kind of physical state was extremely lethal, and this person's will was firm and his body was overflowing with killing intent. He was clearly someone who had experienced hundreds of battles, and his combat ability was even more astonishing. There were few people in the yuanying stage who were his match. Of the martial cultivators that Lin Feng had seen before, although he did not know what the Marquis of Xuanji, Zhu Hongwu, looked like in the yuanying stage, he believed that apart from Zhu Hongwu, no one in the yuanying stage could compete with this Marquis Jinghuanhu in terms of physical strength. Perhaps the northern militant court's great Chanyu could, but he was not completely confident. Lin Feng could basically conclude that if this person cultivated a primordial soul and fused his primordial soul with his physical body, he would be another Zhu Hongwu. A first-tier primordial soul cultivator could challenge a second-tier primordial soul cultivator. Even now, with his late yuanying stage cultivation, Marquis Jinghuanhu appeared extremely relaxed when facing Crimson Phoenix Fei, who had already reached the undying demon soul stage. This kind of relaxation was an external manifestation of complete confidence in one's strength. His spirit, qi, and spirit were incomparably exuberant. He had the appearance of a young man, and he looked a little younger than Xiao Yan. He was about the same age as Mou in human form. He was very handsome, and his eyes exuded a domineering temperament. He looked like a hawk and looked like a wolf, full of aggression and predation, domineering, greedy, arrogant, confident. His temperament was somewhat similar to that of the Qin dynasty's crown prince, Shi Chongyun. He was less sinister than Shi Chongyun, but more murderous. This murderous aura was not sinister and ruthless, but dignified and aboveboard. It originated from Marquis Jinghuanhu's many years of killing. Everything in the world belongs to those who are capable. Marquis Jinghuan first glanced at Crimson Phoenix Fei before turning his gaze to Black Phoenix Mou. He nodded and said, "Not bad, very good. Come with me." His voice did not contain the slightest murderous intent. Instead, it was somewhat refreshing and pleasing to the ear. However, the tone of his voice was like an irresistible command. It was as if his words were an order, a military order. Anyone who heard his words had to obey. Subconsciously, the first reaction was to obey his words. Lin Feng, who was on Mount Yujing, and Xiao Yan, who was at the scene, laughed silently in their hearts when they heard what he said. This guy is really crazy. Fei Yi and Mou couldn't laugh. The two of them calmly looked at Marquis Jinghuan. Mou coldly said, "If the heavens want one to die, they will first make one mad. Marquis Jinghuan, you are not far from death." Marquis Jinghuan replied carelessly, "They died only because they weren't strong enough." Fei Yi indifferently looked at him. "Do you think you are strong enough for you to do such an absurd and arrogant thing?" Marquis Jinghuan smiled and calmly said, "The Fei Scarlet Phoenix is a member of the Scarlet Phoenix clan of the Phoenix clan. He is more than 5,000 years old and has reached the first layer of the undying demon soul. He possesses the pure yang true fire unique to the Phoenix clan. He is usually in charge of the Phoenix clan's external communications. Among the great saints of the Phoenix clan, he appears the most. In terms of actual combat experience, he should be the most abundant among his peers. However, the last time he fought was more than 800 years ago. He enunciated his words clearly and his voice was loud. He spoke at a steady pace and in a clear and organized manner. This Marquis has led troops for many years and knows the importance of military intelligence. Although the Phoenix clan lives in seclusion and it is difficult to gather intelligence, you happen to be the great saint of the Phoenix clan who goes out the most, so you have the most intelligence. Marquis Jinghuan stood silently under the immortal imperial flag. His expression relaxed as if he was chatting with Fei Yi. He raised his hand and gently stroked the pole of the immortal imperial flag. This artifact of mine is called the immortal imperial flag. There are two main points. The first is Emperor and the second is Undying. Although the immortal imperial flag is also extremely lethal, that is not its strongest point. Following Marquis Jing Huan's words, the immortal imperial flag suddenly changed. The flag fluttered in the wind and turned into a black light that instantly engulfed Fei Yi, Xiao Yan, and Mou. The black light turned into an independent space that cut off Xiao Yan and the other's connection to the outside world, creating its own world. Xiao Yan's expression did not change as he carefully sensed the intent realm within the black light. He discovered that there was an aura of a magnificent army protecting an emperor. No matter how powerful the enemy was, no matter how the heavens fell and the earth split, they would still protect their emperor. And the emperor that was being protected did not diminish in the slightest. This was the unshakable majesty of an emperor, eternal and inextinguishable, the authoritative will of an eternal emperor. The immortal imperial flag was like the great Qin's king of tranquility, Shi Zongyue's dragon concealment pot. It was also an artifact that could open up a small space within. Moreover, this small space was much more stable and powerful than the dragon concealment pot, making it difficult to break through. Just as Marquis Jing Huan had said, although this artifact was lethal, its strongest point was its inner space. By placing the artifact's owner within this space, it could ensure their safety. If an enemy was swept up, it would be the best way to trap them, making it impossible for them to escape. Fei Yi did not even bat an eyelid as he calmly nodded. It is indeed extraordinary, but unfortunately your cultivation is too low and you are unable to display its true power. You are just wasting a heavenly treasure. It cannot trap me. If this is what you are relying on, then I can only think that you have gone mad, Marquis Jing Huan calmly said. Marquis Jing Huan said unhurriedly, this isn't to trap you. It's to prevent my little beauty from escaping when I fight you. Seeing his frivolous words, Mou's expression became colder and colder. Seeing this, Marquis Jing Huan smiled slightly. There is no need to be angry. In the future, you will understand that an outstanding woman like you should only be matched with an even more outstanding man like me. Only then will you not cast pearls before swine. He turned to look at Fei Yi. As for you, I have something else to greet you with. With a flip of his palm, a dark light flashed and landed in front of him, transforming into a tall giant. Its bones were thick and gave off a metallic feel. The giant was expressionless and looked like a walking corpse. Its skin was iron black and the muscles beneath it bulged. Just by looking at it, one could feel the terrifying explosive power within. Its entire body flashed with a dazzling red light, and a strong fiery yang aura surged. Its blood was so strong that it was not inferior to that of a first-tier primordial soul adept. Fei Yi had a look of surprise on his face. This is the ultimate masterpiece of the ancient human cultivation sect, the god-slaying puppet? The phoenixes were not very well informed about recent events, but they knew many ancient secrets in great detail. Fei Yi immediately recognized that the giant before him was a flesh puppet refined from the power of a human cultivator. Moreover, it was a puppet with the power of the primordial soul stage. It originated from the ancient human cultivation sect, the puppetry Tao. The puppetry Tao was a demonic sect that had once dominated the world for a period of time. It was arrogant and vicious. The cultivators in the sect were not very strong, but they all refined powerful puppets as weapons in battle. The puppetry Tao not only had puppets with the power of the Yuanying and Golden Elixir periods, but they also had puppets with the power of the primordial soul stage. This sect had a terrible reputation in the ancient times because they used secret techniques to refine puppets using the bodies of other cultivators. The god-slaying puppet that Marquis Jing Huan took out now was refined into a puppet by a puppetry Tao mighty figure in the past who had refined another primordial soul stage martial expert. Such an act that incurred the wrath of the masses was naturally condemned by the masses. Thus, the puppetry Tao was quickly annihilated in the long river of history. However, it also left a strong mark in the history of the human cultivation world. Even the demon race in Tianhuang mainland had heard of it. Marquis Jing Huan nodded. This is something I found by accident when I was exploring a ruin. It's quite useful and can be used to greet you. Before he finished speaking, the god-slaying puppet had already charged toward Fei Yi with a raging aura. This puppet was called the god-slaying puppet, which meant that it could slay primordial souls. Its name was extremely arrogant, but it was indeed very powerful. Not only did it retain the cultivation of the primordial soul stage expert, it also became fearless of death and injury. Roar! The god-slaying puppet let out a wild roar, and the explosive sound wave almost tore apart Fei Ye's protective demonic energy barrier. Fei Ye's expression was calm. He raised his head and let out a crisp phoenix cry. Boundless demonic energy spread out, turning into a boundless hurricane that collided with the god-slaying puppet. The world of black light instantly turned into a storm. The god-slaying puppet was indeed very powerful. It was completely unscathed even though it was surrounded by astral winds. It even used its own strength to tear apart the astral winds and approach Fei Yi. However, as a member of the Phoenix race, Fei Yi was extremely talented and powerful. He was extremely outstanding among demons of the same level. The hurricane formed by his demonic energy also caused the god-slaying puppet to feel as if it had fallen into a quagmire. Marquis Jing Huan's expression did not change. A burly man clad in armor stepped out from the void behind him. It was a late-stage Yuanying expert. However, this burly man was not trying to pincer Fei Yi. Instead, he raised a sheathed saber with both hands and brought it to Marquis Jing Huan's side. A late-stage Yuanying expert was only fit to carry a saber. Marquis Jing Huan unsheathed the saber, and a golden light flashed across the jet-black blade. It exuded an ancient and primordial sovereign aura. The immense power made Xiao Yan's eyelids twitch. Are you kidding me? It's another Dharma treasure? This saber was also a Dharma treasure. Although it was not as good as the immortal imperial flag and was only a spirit-nurturing grade Dharma treasure, it was still a genuine Dharma treasure. It nurtured a primordial spirit and possessed astonishing power. A late-stage Yuanying cultivator who had yet to form a nascent soul possessed two Dharma treasures. Even Mou of the Phoenix race felt that his self-restraint was lacking. Is there something wrong with the primordial spirits of these two Dharma treasures? What are they thinking? Why would they submit to a late-stage Yuanying cultivator? Lin Feng, who was on Jade Capital Mountain, also found it interesting. Two Dharma treasures, one at the incarnation grade and the other at the spirit-nurturing grade, were nothing to him. However, for them to appear in the hands of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator at the same time was rather eye-catching. Many nascent soul cultivators only had one Dharma treasure on them, and some didn't even have one. Marquis Jing Huan, a late-stage Yuanying cultivator, possessed two Dharma treasures. Moreover, after careful observation, Lin Feng discovered that these two Dharma treasures actually belonged to him. Although he hadn't formed a blood bond with them, he had already completely refined them. They weren't temporarily lent to him by someone else. Tsk tisk, he's quite impressive. Lin Feng laughed. Does this count as a major Prince Scarlet Leaf? No, he's different from Prince Scarlet Leaf. Chapter 513. Through the magic power and divine sense he had left on Xiao Yan, Lin Feng carefully observed. He discovered that Marquis Jinghuan was looking at Black Phoenix Mou as if he was looking at an object, a beloved plaything. If it was the Scarlet Leaf Prince, Yi Piaoxue, his gaze would most likely be as deep as it could be. At the same time, he would feel good about himself and feel that Mou was looking at him the same way. Even if it wasn't for now, in the future, Mou would prostrate before his golden spear and live peacefully with his other women. Marquis Jinghuan's interest in collecting beauties was much stronger than Yi Piaoxue's, but it was a manifestation of his possessiveness. All the beauties in the world were like collectibles in his eyes. He wasn't like Yi Piaoxue, who mindlessly had a harem. He was purely greedy and possessive. He wanted all the good things in the world. Lin Feng shook his head. Friend, this isn't appropriate. Your face is like a villain who attracts hatred. You're just like Shi Tianyi. He's like an old enemy specially prepared for the destined one. He's like an unkillable cockroach. He doesn't die every time, and the next time he jumps out, he'll be even stronger. In reality, he's just a recyclable tool for others to farm for experience and equipment. Lin Feng couldn't help but find it funny. Could this be the legendary transport captain? TSK, I wonder who he's prepared this for. At this moment, Lin Feng looked at Marquis Jinghuan and felt a slight regret that he hadn't met him earlier. At his current level, Marquis Jinghuan's items didn't really matter to him. Instead, his disciples were more suitable. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Silly brats, let's see which of you is lucky enough to get this. This is a huge gold mine. It's a renewable resource that can be recycled and mined for a long time. A so-called old enemy was basically a kind-hearted person who specialized in sending warmth to the destined one. If you needed treasures or divine artifacts, you could find an old enemy. If you needed cultivation techniques or divine abilities, you could find an old enemy. If you needed to raise your reputation, you could find an old enemy. If you needed girls, you could find an old enemy. Poor chosen ones, your enemy may make you suffer a little humiliation for a while, but he will definitely compensate you 1,000 times in the future. You can obtain all the resources you need from your enemy. It was definitely much easier to advance by stepping on an old enemy than to work hard on his own. Therefore, you must cherish and love your hard-won enemies. They can save you many years of struggle. Marquis Jinghuan naturally didn't know that in Lin Feng's eyes, he had already become an ATM for his disciples. With the saber in hand, Marquis Jinghuan's aura was even more different. Although he had yet to form an essence soul, and the ancient emperor's saber in his hand was like the indestructible imperial flag, unable to unleash its full power, its might was still astonishing. Wherever the edge of the blade pointed, enemies would retreat. The majesty of a monarch was fully displayed, as if it had the aura of ruling over the world. All enemies could only obediently submit and await death. A clear light surged above Marquis Jinghuan's head, and a majestic pillar of qi shot up into the sky. It was like a beacon of smoke, filled with the blood and will of a martial expert. Vaguely, there were sounds of killing in the smoke. Countless armors appeared in the smoke, as if the spirit and will of thousands of warriors had been added to the smoke at the same time. It was as if the spirit and will of thousands of warriors had been added to the smoke. The next moment, the essence qi beacon was completely retracted into Marquis Jinghuan's body. His eyes flashed with golden and bloody light. He slashed out with the ancient emperor's saber in his hand, shattering the void and sending a golden beam of light towards Fei Yi. Fei Yi wouldn't have cared if it was a 10,000-foot wave of light, but this thin beam of light made him frown slightly. He didn't dare to let it touch him. Marquis Jinghuan pushed his martial path mystique to the extreme, activating the ancient emperor's saber. Although he couldn't unleash the full power of the Dharma treasure, it already had the power to injure essence soul experts. Instantly, Marquis Jinghuan and the god-slaying puppet joined forces to attack Scarlet Phoenix Fei Yi. Both sides were evenly matched. Strictly speaking, besides the immortal imperial flag and the ancient emperor's saber, the god-slaying puppet was also a powerful weapon that wasn't inferior to a Dharma treasure. Marquis Jinghuan was a Yuanian cultivator, but he had such a rich background. Even many essence soul experts didn't have it. At the same time, these treasures made him one of the few late-stage Yuanian cultivators who could challenge essence soul experts. Lin Feng watched the battle between Marquis Jinghuan and Fei Yi. Slowly, he nodded. That essence qi beacon was his heaven and earth Dharma idol. However, A martial cultivator's heaven and earth Dharma idol isn't used to attack enemies directly. Instead, it fuses the heaven and earth Dharma idol with one's physical body to further strengthen one's physical body. Fei Yi was surrounded by Marquis Jinghuan and the god-slaying puppet, but his expression was calm. I'm not the only one in the phoenix race. Furthermore, even if I'm the only one, I won't allow you to be so arrogant. He raised his head and let out a clear cry. His body gradually turned into a ball of golden light, and a divine bird appeared in the golden light. It had the head of a chicken, the beak of a swallow, the neck of a snake, the back of a turtle, and the tail of a fish. Milky white flames flickered faintly in its eyes. Fei Yi had revealed his true form. He had transformed into a scarlet phoenix. He wasn't very big, and he was only about 6 feet tall. However, a powerful demonic aura radiated from him, forcing Jing Huan Marquis and the god-slaying puppet to retreat. Milky white pure yang flames gushed out, burning through even space. The immortal imperial flag's grotto heaven instantly became unstable. Marquis Jinghuan smiled. Everyone knows that phoenixes possess pure yang flames. How could I not make preparations? 6 dark green flames suddenly lit up in the immortal imperial flag's dark void. The green flames burned in the air, but one couldn't feel any heat. Instead, it was bone-chilling cold. Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback, carefully observing for a while. He understood. It's not a real flame but formed from pure and extremely condensed yin energy? The 6 dark green flames lit up and instantly turned into a green sea of fire, covering the immortal imperial flag's grotto heaven. Both Fei Yi and Mou had obvious looks of disgust on their faces. Marquis Jinghuan looked at Fei Yi and smiled. This 6-unity yin absolute formation can produce pure yin qi. Although it can't restrain pure yang flames, it can weaken them to a certain extent. It's not only useful for you, but it's also useful for my little beauty. He ordered, I'll deal with this great sage-level phoenix myself. You guys capture that black phoenix. Aside from the strong man carrying the saber behind him, a white-robed middle-aged man walked out of the void. He had a majestic aura, and his magic power shook the void. He was also a late Yuanian cultivator. Beside the white-robed man was a group of elite martial artists in armor. They were also Yuanian cultivators. Their blood energy was vigorous, their willpower was strong, and their bodies brimmed with killing intent. They were all battle-hardened people. Marquis Jinghuan's plan was to fight Fei Yi himself. Then, 2 late-stage Yuanian patriarchs would lead a group of subordinates to capture Mou. Mou was a late-stage demon king. As a phoenix, his strength was outstanding and he had pure yang flames. Ordinary late-stage Yuanian cultivators were no match for him. However, Marquis Jinghuan had used the immortal imperial flag to trap him and then used the 6-unity yin absolute formation to restrict the power of pure yang flames. Then, he had 2 late-stage Yuanian cultivators lead a group of Yuanian cultivators. Such a lineup was enough to pose a threat to Mou. In particular, the Yuanian cultivators under him were all extraordinary. They had powerful combat strength and were the cream of the crop among their peers. Silently, Fei Yi stared at Marquis Jinghuan in his phoenix form. Suddenly, he let out a long cry. As he cried out, blood gradually seeped out of his eyes. Phoenix weeps blood. Fei Yi's phoenix cry had penetrated the immortal imperial flag's spatial seal. His spiritual will had been transmitted all the way through the endless void and reached the parasol tree forest of infinite mainland. Seeing this, Marquis Jinghuan nodded. This is Phoenix Weeps Blood, right? It is indeed extraordinary. It can even pass through the immortal imperial flag's grotto heaven. He did not panic and said indifferently, Your clansmen from the Wudong forest should have already received your message and are rushing over here. However, this is also within my expectations. Your clansmen need time to get here, and before that, I've already left with the beauty. Your efforts are meaningless, Fei Yi said, Do you think you can escape? Marquis Jinghuan smiled nonchalantly. Your Phoenix clan has gone all out. I am indeed powerless to resist now. However, there are naturally people who can do it. Once I attain the Essence Soul Realm, there will be a day when I can trample the Parasol Tree Forest. Just like now. I have never thought of killing you today. All I need to do is delay you. My subordinates will naturally capture the beauty. Once I attain the Essence Soul Realm, killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken. These extremely arrogant words came out of his mouth, but they seemed extremely normal, as if it was only natural. Xiao Yan, who had been standing silently to the side, suddenly burst into laughter. You make it sound so easy. It's as if the great Zhou Empire will definitely take the blame for you. The disaster you've caused this time can be said to be heaven-shaking. Once Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou finds out, he will most likely throw you out for the Phoenix clan to deal with, right? Marquis Jinghuan looked at Xiao Yan and said indifferently, I've already seen you. You're Xianmen Tianzong's disciple, right? From your appearance and clothes, you should be Xiao Yan? Xiao Yan chuckled. Your eyes are quite sharp. Marquis Jinghuan said, I learned that a phoenix entered the divine land and sought an audience with the master of the mystic gate. Furthermore, it successfully ascended Yujing Mountain. It will descend the mountain in a day and set off for Tianhuang mainland. I didn't know you were accompanying it. I don't know why you traveled with the phoenix, but as long as you don't interfere with my matters and give the master of the mystic gate some face, I won't make things difficult for you. Once this matter is over, I will naturally release you from the indestructible Imperial Flag's grotto heaven. Xiao Yan smiled coldly. In that case, I should be thanking you? Could it be that you want to help the phoenix? Marquis Jinghuan's tone was still calm as he enunciated each word clearly. Those who are not of my race must have different intentions. The human race and the demon race have always been at odds. The demon race kills humans, so it is only right and proper for me to hunt and kill the demon race. The master of the mystic gate is also considered a powerhouse of the human race. As his disciple, are you going to collude with the demon race? Xiao Yan shrugged and sneered. Don't be in such a hurry to accuse me. Taishu Temple is the most vigilant against the demon race, but I don't see them provoking the phoenix race. It's not because they bully the weak and fear the strong, but because the phoenix race hides from the world and doesn't even participate in the war between the two worlds. Perhaps the great Zhou dynasty will support you if you have a conflict with the other demon clans. However, you have provoked the Phoenix clan. You have forcefully sent a powerful force that would not have intervened in the conflict between the two clans to the opposing side. Do you think the great Zhou dynasty will still protect you? Marquis Jinghuan looked at Xiao Yan and suddenly smiled. There are many things you don't understand. Chapter 514. There are indeed many things I don't understand. Xiao Yan shrugged his shoulders. For example, I don't understand where you have the confidence to be so arrogant. I'll ask out of hand, you're so arrogant that you probably don't even remember what your surname is, right? Xiao Yan examined Marquis Jinghuan up and down with a very rude gaze. Don't tell me it's as the rumors say, that you're the illegitimate child of Emperor Zhou Liang Pan? Even if you are, Liang Pan will not protect you after causing such a huge disaster for the great Zhou dynasty. Marquis Jinghuan was successful at a young age, and the rewards he received were too great. He was even given bright yellow clothing to wear, making him almost like a member of the royal family. There were many criticisms within the great Zhou dynasty. There were even rumors that he was the illegitimate child of Emperor Zhou Liang Pan. Liang Pan himself did not comment on this, and Marquis Jinghuan did not respond. Xiao Yan looked at him. Even the great Zhou crown prince, Liang Yuan, provoked the phoenix race for no reason. This is a great crime. A light punishment would be the removal of the crown prince position. A heavy punishment would be even more severe. The two late-stage Yuanying cultivators and the other Yuanying cultivators next to Marquis Jinghuan felt uncomfortable under Xiao Yan's gaze. They stared at him with unfriendly expressions. A thick, murderous aura spread out, making people tremble in fear. Marquis Jinghuan did not get angry and said calmly, "That's why I said that there are many things you don't understand. Xiao Yan, the eldest disciple of the master of the Xian Gate. He comes from the Xiao family of the Wuzhou city of the Qin dynasty. He should be 19, but he should have cultivated in a heavenly grotto heaven with accelerated time. That's why he's already over 20. A year ago, on the Cellerita's sword sex cloud-traversing peak, he fought against the Qin dynasty's crown prince Shi Chongyun with early-stage golden elixir cultivation. He had the solar Truefire and the nether evil blaze Truefire. He once used the ability to combine the two flames and destroyed one of Shi Chongyun's Yuanying magic treasures. He fought to a draw with Shi Chongyun. Marquis Jinghuan's tone was flat, but he was very familiar with Xiao Yan's life. After this battle, you will advance to the middle stage of the golden elixir realm and then vanish. The battle on Cloud-Traversing Peak will be the last time you fight for nearly a year. Now that your cultivation has reached the late stage of the golden elixir, your rate of improvement is indeed very fast. Compared to your previous achievements, your current strength can at least defeat a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator, and you can even fight against a late-stage Yuanying cultivator." When Marquis Jinghuan said this, his eyes flickered. It is often said that the master of the Mystic Gate has monstrous geniuses under him. Looking at you now, this is indeed true. The master of the celestial sect of wonders is a true hero. Marquis Jinghuan's expression remained calm. But if you think that you alone can interfere with my affairs, then you are gravely mistaken. I can use the ancient emperor's saber to contend with this scarlet phoenix for a very long time, but how long can you last against my god-slaying puppet? Although he said that, looking at his relaxed attitude, whether it was Xiao Yan, Fei Yi, or Mou, they could all see that other than the indestructible emperor flag, the ancient emperor's saber, and the god-slaying puppet, he definitely had other trump cards. This was extremely frightening. 3 primordial spirit-grade treasures were actually not this person's full strength. "Or we can swap," Marquis Jinghuan said with fervor and assurance. "I also want to try Xianmen Tianzong's Dao, skills, and divine abilities and see what's so special about them." Xiao Yin was unafraid. He chuckled. "All right, then let's give it a try." He put his hands together, and golden flames immediately gushed out. It was like a small sun slowly rising from the eternal imperial flag's grotto heaven. Only using the sun's true fire? It's useless. I don't have the ancient emperor's saber. Just like you, I am a late-stage golden elixir cultivator. You are no match for me with just one type of true fire, let alone a late-stage Yuanying cultivator like me with the ancient emperor's saber. As Marquis Jinghuan spoke, his figure suddenly flashed. With the god-slaying puppet temporarily blocking Fei Yi, he suddenly rushed in front of Xiao Yan. A martial cultivator's physical qi and blood burst forth. Combined with the power of spatial travel, they could sprint faster than lightning at close range. Tai Huang Dermic Scroll, Overlord's Token. Marquis Jinghuan did not use the ancient emperor's saber in his right hand. He put the saber behind his back, and his left hand spread open, smashing down on Xiao Yan's head. One. The space emitted bursts of explosive sounds. Xiao Yan shockingly discovered that the air in a radius of several miles around him seemed to have been sucked out in an instant, the space continuously collapsing towards him, wanting to squeeze him in the middle and crush him into meat paste. Marquis Jinghuan's palm came crashing down like the majesty of an emperor. With a single command, heaven and earth obeyed. The might of this overlord's token was actually a martial mystique that simulated the terrifying power of the world's destruction. Xiao Yan had not personally experienced a battle with a late-stage Yuanying cultivator, but he had heard from Zhu Yi and other senior and junior brothers that the late-stage Yuanying patriarchs had powerful battle strength when they revealed their heaven and earth dharma powers. However, none of them were as powerful as Marquis Jing Huan's token, which was fused with the heaven and earth dharma powers. Marquis Jing Huan's palm alone could shatter the heaven and earth dharma powers of most late-stage Yuanying cultivators. Without relying on primordial spirit dharma treasures, he could sweep through the Yuanying cultivators with his own cultivation. Few could match him. Ha, good move! Xiao Yan sneered. The sun-true fire in the center of his palm glowed with golden light, like thousands of needles clustered together. Suddenly there was a change. A flame that was also golden but flashed with red and blue light suddenly lit up in Xiao Yan's palm. In both of Xiao Yan's eyes, two flames suddenly flashed separately. His left eye was pure gold, the flames were like needles, dazzling and eye-catching. His right eye was gold with red and blue colors, reflecting each other's brilliance. He circulated his magic power to the limit, and his 10 fingers moved nimbly as if they were plucking flowers. He instantly cast spell after spell seal into the true fire in his palm. An incomparably terrifying aura spread out. It was a powerful concept that could burn and destroy everything, even the creation of the world would be reduced to ashes. Firmament Fire Lotus. Xiao Yan took a deep breath and suddenly clapped his palms together. The berserk flames calmed down and condensed into a golden lotus the size of a palm. In the middle of the lotus, the red and blue-colored light turned into a stamen gently swaying. Xiao Yan, who had already reached the late stage of the golden elixir realm, fused the flame lotus with his true fire much more easily than it had been on cloud-traversing peak. It was smoother and faster, and he completed this incomparably terrifying Dharma spell in almost an instant. He had been dormant for too long. Today, he would completely erupt and announce to the world that the eldest disciple of Xianmen Tianzong, whose name had once shaken the divine continent, had officially returned. At the same time, Marquis Jing Huan's overlord token palm came crashing down. Without hesitation, Xiao Yan used the golden firmament fire lotus in his hand to meet Marquis Jing Huan's overlord token. With a boom, the world of black light turned bright. In the next moment, the void was engulfed by a boundless sea of flames. As far as the eye could see, there were boundless golden flames. Even Fei Yi, who was a great sage, was surprised. Mou, who was a late-stage demon king, and the 2 late-stage nascent soul experts under Marquis Jing Huanho were even more shocked. There was no need to talk about Marquis Jing Huanho, but Xiao Yan's firmament fire lotus after fusing 2 great true fires was truly terrifying. Such power would make ordinary late-stage Yuanying cultivators tremble in fear. This was a power that could destroy their Dharma idol and even kill them. The golden sea of flames was vast and mighty, and red and blue light danced in the air. In the center of the sea of flames, Xiao Yan was like the Emperor of Flames, standing proudly. However, his expression was slightly solemn as he stared at Marquis Jing Huan, who was also in the sea of flames. Marquis Jing Huan also stood in the sea of flames, turning a blind eye to the flames around him. Xiao Yan thought to himself, this person is truly powerful. Even if Great Qin's crown prince Shi Chongyun cultivated to late-stage Yuanying, he might not be able to withstand my firmament fire lotus. This person is truly capable of fighting it head-on with his physical body. With such power, he can easily defeat an ordinary late-stage Yuanying cultivator. Compared to Xiao Yan, Marquis Jing Huan's expression was even more solemn. For the first time since he appeared, he looked surprised. You fused 2 types of true fires just now. One is the true sun fire, there's no mistake, but the second, oh, it's golden and flashes with red and blue light. That's the Nanmingli fire. You actually have the Nanmingli fire. Aside from the true sun fire and the Nanmingli fire, you also have the nether evil blaze. Marquis Jing Huan's eyes flashed as he said, "You don't have 2 true fires. You actually have 3 true fires at the same time?" The moment he said this, everyone was shocked. At the same time, they looked at Xiao Yan in shock. Even Fei Yi had forced the god-slaying puppet to retreat. He paused the battle and looked at Xiao Yan. This kid actually has 3 true fires at the same time? Xiao Yan smiled faintly and did not say anything, which was equivalent to tacit agreement. The space suddenly fell silent. Be it Marquis Jing Huan, Fei Yi, or Mou, all of them had the same question in their minds. Since Xiao Yan could fuse the power of 2 true fires, could his celestial fire lotus also fuse 3 true fires at the same time? The fusion of 2 true fires already had such power. What if 3 true fires fused at the same time? It would not be as simple as 2 + 1 = 3. How terrifying would the power be? Marquis Jing Huan's gaze moved back and forth between Xiao Yan and Fei Yi. To deal with this Xiao Yan, I have to use the ancient Emperor Saber. However, the pressure on that Scarlet Phoenix will be reduced. Just one god-slaying puppet won't be able to do anything to it. To deal with these 2 at the same time, I still need to use more trump cards. It's not good for me to expose too much now, Marquis Jing Huan thought to himself. And I won't make it in time. The other phoenixes will be here soon to reinforce me. With this thought, Marquis Jing Huan waved his hand, and the ancient Emperor's saber returned to its scabbard. Black light flashed before his eyes, and even the imperishable imperial flag was retracted. He released Xiao Yan, Fei Yi, and Mou. Then the imperishable imperial flag fluttered in the wind, sweeping up Marquis Jing Huan and his subordinates as they flew away. They had actually left without any hesitation. Xianmen Tianzong, you live up to your reputation. Marquis Jing Huan's voice reverberated through the air. However, this Marquis will eventually have a chance to take this Black Phoenix. There's no rush. Xiao Yan, you ruined this Marquis's plans. This Marquis will settle the score with you in the future. However, if you have the time to meddle in other people's business, why don't you think about your own path of escape, Xianmen Tianzong? This Marquis will give you a reminder. Your junior brother Shi Tianhao's rival, the dual-pupiled Shi Tianyi, has long since surpassed the Shi and Yu clans. Chapter 5:15. Xiao Yan raised his brows when he heard Marquis Jinghuan's words. Oh? That guy has a new backer? Marquis Jinghuan's voice resounded in the air. That dual-pupiled Shi Tianyi is currently cultivating in White Cloud Mountain. Hearing the 3 words White Cloud Mountain, even Fei Yi and Mou's gazes fell on Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's gaze was a little cold as he lightly clenched his fist. White Cloud Mountain was located at the border of the Great Zhou Empire and the Great Qin Empire. It was almost the center of the Divine Land and the #1 cultivation sacred ground of the human cultivation world, Taishu Temple. Taishu Temple was the #1 sacred ground of the human race in the Great Heaven primordial world. In the past, it was known as one of the 3 sacred grounds along with the Great Thunderclap Monastery and the Mount Shu Sword Sect. Taishu Temple was publicly recognized as the leader of the 3 sacred grounds. Its disciples were all talented and outstanding. Taishu Temple had always been the leader of the human race in every war against the demon race in Tianhuang continent. After the war, Taishu Temple was in charge of keeping a close eye on the movements of the demon race. Most of the sect's attention was placed on the demon world, but even so, no one dared to have any ideas about Taishu Temple. In the history of the human cultivation world, both the Great Lane Monastery and the Mount Shu Sword Sect had suffered great calamities. Their mountain gate had been attacked, and the Great Lane Monastery's orthodoxy had been completely destroyed in the battle to exterminate Buddhism. Only the Void Temple, for countless years, made other human forces unable to have the confidence to fight against it. The White Cloud Mountain rarely experienced the flames of war, and they all happened during the war between the 2 worlds. However, unlike the Great Thunderclap Monastery, which had half of its monastery destroyed by Yu Huang's celestial sea back then, the White Cloud Mountain had never been breached. In the long history of the human race's cultivation world, the Void Temple has always appeared as an arbiter, balancing the disputes of all sides, preserving the strength and vitality of the human race, using the world as a chess piece. Even the Great Thunder Temple and Mount Shu Sword sect of the three great Holy Lands are all in the Void Temple's calculations. Once upon a time, when he was young, Xiao Yan hoped that one day he could enter the Taishu Temple and bring honor to his ancestors. Naturally, Xiao Yan no longer had such thoughts, but it didn't mean that he didn't know what it meant for Shi Tianyi to join the Taishu Temple. Originally, Shi Tianyi only had the Shi clan and Yu clan standing behind him, and to Xianmen Tianzong, it was completely insufficient. But now that Shi Tianyi had climbed up the Taishu Temple, it was as if he had jumped from two small dinghies directly onto an invincible giant ship that could traverse the heavens. No matter who he finds as his backer, he must repay the justice he owed in the past. Lin Feng's voice suddenly rang out between heaven and earth, shaking the world. Xiao Yan laughed when he heard that. The conflict between his junior apprentice brother, Shi Tianhao, and the dual-pupiled person, Shi Tianyi, was irreconcilable. No matter who stood in their way, this enmity must be avenged. If God obstructed him, he would kill God. If Buddha obstructed him, he would kill Buddha. Not even the Taishu Temple. There were some things that absolutely could not be conceded. Shi Tianhao himself would not give this face. His group of apprentice brothers would not give this face, and his master Lin Feng even more so would not. Xiao Yan thought of over a year ago when Lin Feng personally brought him to the Celeritas Sword Sect's Cloud Travel Peak, the matter of the 3-year battle agreement. The Celeritas Sword Sect was naturally unable to be mentioned in the same breath as the Taishu Temple, but to Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, the reasoning was all the same. Master, it's impossible for the Taishu Temple's people to not know about the dispute between that Shi Tianyi and junior apprentice brother. Since that's the case, still wanting to take him in as a disciple, this is equivalent to clearly provoking me, Xianmen Tianzong. Xiao Yan muttered to himself and said, "This is not in line with their usual style of doing things." With the foundation and status of the Taishu Temple, no matter how much more genius Shi Tianyi has, no matter how much more potential he has, they still shouldn't make an exception. It's not that Taishu Temple would fear and dread Xianmen Tianzong, but rather that they had their own consistent way of doing things that had already been carried out for countless years. It was impossible for them to change it for a certain person. No matter how outstanding that person was, placed in the long river of history, it was also unable to be mentioned in the same breath as the Taishu Temple itself. Lin Feng sat upright on Yujing Mountain, using mana to send a voice transmission to Xiao Yan. The Taishu Temple is divided into the conservative faction and the radical faction. Even though the conservative faction has always been in charge, the power of the radical faction is not weak, and they have always been actively laying out plans. Before this, Pang Jie quietly handed over the position of Dao's World Wayfarer, and since then, the radical faction has laid down their banners and made little movements. But how could they possibly be content with the status quo? Lin Feng said lightly. The radical faction wants the Taishu Temple to rule over the heavens and become the master of humanity, so naturally they would want to recruit talents from all over the world. The Taishu Temple's own disciples are all talented, but there's no such thing as too few geniuses, especially people like Shi Tianyi who can be said to be world-shaking. Lin Feng chuckled. Little Yan, do you think that Marquis Jing Huan told us this news out of kindness? Xiao Yan came to a realization. Master, are you saying that Marquis Jing Huan is also one of the people that the radical faction of the Taishu Temple is secretly recruiting and training? That's right, that's exactly it. Lin Feng said calmly. He leaked the news to us because he wants to use me, Xianmen Tianzong, to get rid of a competitor. Xiao Yin grinned. But master, this guy is a little too arrogant. I think he's confused. Even the Taishu Temple wouldn't be willing to provoke the Phoenix Clan, right? They're forcefully pushing the Phoenix Clan to the side of the Demon Clan. When the time comes, they'll have another strong enemy in the war between the two realms. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth curled into a smile. There are two possibilities. Either he has ulterior motives, or he's an idiot. Xiao Yin smacked his lips and said, Master, if you put it that way, then it must be the former. But to be honest, no matter how I look at it, this guy is more likely to be an idiot. Lin Feng laughed. Actually, it doesn't matter. If he has ulterior motives, then he'll definitely make further moves. You guys just have to wait and see. Xiao Yin had his divine power avatar, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to keep Marquis Jing Huan here. However, Lin Feng decided to leave this kind of recyclable gold mine for his disciple to slowly exploit. To the current Lin Feng, Marquis Jing Huan was indeed an unimportant figure. He was more interested in whether there was anyone else behind Marquis Jing Huan. Continue to escort Tong to Infinite Wilderness Vast Land and bring her back safely. Xiao Yin responded with a yes and immediately followed Fei Yi and Mou to Infinite Wilderness Vast Land. Very soon, other phoenixes came to greet them. They had rushed over after receiving the message from Fei Ye's phoenix Weeping Blood. A second-level Undying Demon Soul, Primordial True Spirit Great Sage, led the team. The others were also great demons that had cultivated undying demon souls. With so many demon race great sages entering the divine land, even if they were all phoenixes, it still attracted the attention of the human cultivation world. The primordial true spirit great sage had someone take Fei Yi, Xiao Yin, and the others to escort Lin Tong to Infinite Wilderness Vast Land. He himself remained in the divine land and waited for the human experts to arrive. He was about to demand an explanation for Marquis Jing Huan's matter. Afterwards, which human powerhouse arrived and how the two sides negotiated, Xiao Yin doesn't know. He and Lin Feng also no longer pay attention to this. That's something that the lustful Marquis Jing Huan, who caused this disaster, should worry about himself. In the sky tens of thousands of miles away from the scene of the incident, a beam of black light suddenly appeared. As the light flashed, it transformed into a large flag. A luxuriously dressed youth appeared and stood in the void below the flag. It was none other than Marquis Jing Huan, who had just caused such a huge disaster. His expression was as calm as ever as he stepped into the grotto heaven opened up by the immortal imperial flag. The grotto heaven was divided into different spaces. Marquis Jing Huan's subordinates were in different spaces, and in other spaces, large amounts of resources were stored. There were all kinds of cultivation resources, treasures, armors, weapons, elixirs, and even money from the mortal world. Apart from that, the huge space was divided into several small compartments that were isolated from each other. Although they were called small compartments, in fact, each compartment was a vast world with different scenery. There were Jiangnan water villages, desert smoke, snow drifting in the north, pavilions and terraces. Every small compartment had one thing in common. In each compartment there would always be a courtyard, either luxurious or simple. Marquis Jing Huan stepped into one of the small compartments and walked into a room in the courtyard. There were servants in the courtyard and maids in the room. In addition to these servants and maids, there was also a beautiful girl in her 20s. Silently sitting in front of an easel, she held a paintbrush and lightly tapped on the paper. When the girl saw Marquis Jing Huan enter, she smiled. The maids tactfully retreated and closed the door. Someone whispered, "The Marquis and the little Furin are very close. Among all the Furins, the little Furin is the most favored. The Marquis always wants to see the little Furin first. But I've never seen Lord Marquis spend the night in Madame's room. He always leaves after a few words. Yes, it's so strange." Although they tried their best to keep their voices low, how could their gossiping escape Marquis Jing Huan's ears? He sat down on a chair and indifferently said, "Your maids will need to be replaced again." The girl said, "Your murderous nature is too heavy. There's no need to vent it on insignificant people." Marquis Jing Huan reached out and tapped the wooden easel. "Don't talk like that." The girl smiled and closed her eyes. Light appeared above her head, and the sound of Buddhist chanting and the fragrance of sandalwood wafted out. In the Buddhist light, one could vaguely make out the figure of a monk. The monk smiled and said, "To speak to this penniless monk in such a tone, you seem to be in a very bad mood." Marquis Jing Huan replied, "My good deed has been ruined, so I'm naturally in a bad mood. If you are dissatisfied, you don't have to cooperate with me." The monk smiled, filled with the wisdom of enlightenment. He was otherworldly, but the words he said made one's hair stand on end. "I can just kill you." Marquis Jing Huan replied, "You won't be able to find a better partner than me in a short period of time." "That's right. This penniless monk lacks nothing but time," the monk replied noncommittally. "However, if you always have such a temperament, you will never have any hope of attaining the nascent soul realm in this lifetime. Even if time is tight, this penniless monk will have to consider changing partners." Marquis Jing Huan fell silent for a moment. Slowly, he said, "I misspoke before. Please forgive me, master." The monk smiled and said, "It's fine. Let's talk about what happened today." This penniless monk saw the entire process. From the looks of it, the master of the mystic gate actually returned the Wudong tree heart to the phoenixes. Marquis Jing Huan said, "The person who came from Xianmen Tianzong is indeed extraordinarily strong, but the master of the mystic gate actually succumbed to the phoenix's pressure and returned the Wudong tree heart that was already in his possession. It was truly disappointing. From this, it can be seen that this person is nothing more than this. He likes to scheme and balance too much. It's inevitable that he loses his edge." The monk seemed to be in thought. "You think so?" Marquis Jing Huan replied, "That's right. I'm very suspicious now. Does he have the courage to go against Taishu Temple for his disciple, Shi Tianhao?" Chapter 5:16. Marquis Jing Huanho said silently, "The master of the Mystic Gate's actions are similar to those of Taishu Temple's conservative faction. Although he has his methods, they are not his first choice. He has too many things to consider. In the secular world, the older one is, the more cowardly he becomes." Marquis Jing Huanho spoke at a moderate pace, his voice like flowing water. The stronger Xianmen Tianzong grows, the more apprehensions he has, the more restraints he has, as if he is shackled and shackled. Slowly, the monk said, "This penniless monk doesn't see it that way. If Taishu Temple guessed the master of the Mystic Gate as you did, they might not get what they wanted." Marquis Jing Huanho said, "The Wudong tree heart was sent to the Wudong forest in the end." The monk in the Buddhist light smiled. "The Wudong tree emperor suppressing his injuries isn't a bad thing for this penniless monk. It's just a different way of doing things." Marquis Jing Huanho snorted. "Master, it doesn't matter much, but my troubles have just begun." The monk answered, "Don't worry. This penniless monk naturally won't go back on his promise." He raised his palm and waved it gently. An image of light entered Marquis Jing Huanho's forehead. Marquis Jing Huanho trembled and immediately closed his eyes. "Good, good, good." Marquis Jing Huanho's qi and blood shook like a furnace. After a long while, he calmed down and opened his eyes, which shone with divine light. "Wait, that's not right. This is an incomplete image?" He looked straight at the monk. The monk said indifferently, "If it's complete, what use will Taishu Temple and the great Zhou dynasty have for you? How can they protect you? If you want to keep it for yourself, you probably won't be able to hide it from them. Only with this penniless monk can you guarantee your safety." Marquis Jing Huanho stared at the monk for a long time. Slowly, he nodded but said nothing. The monk laughed. "With this as a foundation, even if you provoke the phoenixes, Taishu Temple and the Great Zhou dynasty can tolerate you, support you, and even value you more. Moreover, even if the phoenixes completely side with the demons, both sides will only be evenly matched. This way, war won't break out in the short term. Marquis Jing Huan asked, "Isn't this your intention, Master Jinghe?" Thanks to the efforts of the Taishu Temple, the overall strength of the human cultivation world in the Divine Land was now stronger than that of planet Tianhuang, which had been fighting non-stop. If the war between the two realms broke out in a short period of time, the human race would have a greater chance of winning. Many human cultivator forces were already silently plotting their next move. The seemingly peaceful Divine Land was, in fact, surging with undercurrents. The monk's plan was to increase the strength of the demons, but at the same time, he delayed the outbreak of the war. As for whether it was because he was compassionate or because he had other intentions, only he knew. After this incident, it will depend on how the Great Zhou dynasty and Taishu Temple appease the Phoenix clan. As long as it is handled properly, the Phoenix clan may not necessarily side with the Demon clan, change their original opinion, and intervene in the war between the two worlds. However, as long as this possibility exists, many people will have to consider it. If someone still insists on starting the war, then this penniless monk can also do more things. Eventually, the Phoenix clan will be drawn in. As the monk spoke, there was a hint of a smile in his tone. Isn't it exactly what you want if the war between the two worlds doesn't break out in the short term? Marquis Jing Huan did not deny it and simply nodded. That's right. I still have a lot of potential that can be unearthed, but I need time. The war between the two worlds is a war between the entire Divine Land and planet Tianhuang. It will be earth-shattering. Even the lives of ordinary essence soul cultivators are worthless. If the war breaks out at this time, I won't gain any benefits by hiding in the back. If I charge at the front, it will be easy for me to fall into the schemes of others and become cannon fodder. Marquis Jing Huan looked at his jade-white hands that contained boundless power. Slowly, he said, but with just a little more time I will become a ruler. When that time comes, the war between the two worlds will be the stage for me to rise to prominence in the heaven primordial world. I will be the main character of this era. The demon race will be my meritorious service that will be passed down through the ages. Taishu Temple, the Great Zhou dynasty, and Xianmen Tianzong will all be my foil. The monk chuckled. The foil in your heart, or rather, the meritorious service in the future, also includes this penniless monk? Marquis Jing Huan said, That will depend on your final choice, master. The monk smiled. This penniless monk actually wants to choose to kill you now. Master, you won't. Marquis Jing Huan smiled faintly. At least in your eyes, you won't do that before my value to you is exhausted. In your heart, you have the absolute ability to control me and kill me at any time. Since that's the case, why don't you completely squeeze me dry? Everyone wanted to be the main character of an era. They all had their own schemes, and they all had their own confidence. As for who would have the last laugh, that would depend on each person's own ability. The monk said noncommittally, If you keep blabbering, then this penniless monk might one day be triggered and kill you first. After all, this penniless monk's Buddhist dharma has yet to be cultivated to perfection. Marquis Jing Huan smiled. Master, don't joke. You have long seen through my heart and nature. The monk did not answer and instead said, You want to give yourself time to grow, but there are others racing with you. Marquis Jing Huan exhaled lightly. Master, are you talking about the disciples of the Mystic Gates Master, as well as the dual-pupiled Shi Tianyi and company? It is indeed a problem, but it's actually not that big of a deal. Just like that Xiao Yan. This penniless monk will find him sooner or later. For now, I will raise him like a pig. When he is fat enough, I will slaughter him. That will give me the greatest harvest. Marquis Jing Huan smiled. 3 kinds of true fire. He, 3 kinds of true fire. I wonder if he can get a 4th? Can he get a pure yang true fire? The monk's eyes flickered. I'm afraid he might not even have 4. Marquis Jinghuan was slightly taken aback. Why do you say that, master? Xiao Yan, who Marquis Jinghuan was thinking about, had already gone to Infinite Wilderness Vast Land. He was bringing Lin Tong to Parasol Tree Forest. As for Lin Feng, he remained seated on Jade Capital Mountain, pondering. Shi Tianyi has found Taishu Temple's radical faction as his backer. If he can enter White Cloud Mountain to cultivate, Taishu Temple's conservative faction must have tacitly agreed. Interesting. Do you think I'm the same as you? You should know that some things can be balanced and calculated, but there are some things that cannot be discussed. Lin Feng sneered. I wonder if the Shi and Yu family's recent actions have anything to do with this? They feel that they have someone backing them up, so they can't judge their own weight anymore. A thought came to Lin Feng as he sent a voice transmission to Kong Nanhua. Nanhua, help me keep an eye on the Shi and Yu family's recent actions. Gather information from all sides, no matter how big or small. Don't let go of any abnormal actions. Kong Nanhua agreed, tore open the void, and left Jade Capital Mountain. After Lin Feng sent Kong Nanhua off, his eyes flickered as he looked at a cave abode on the mountain. Is it that fire fox? That is the location of Fox Yanyan's residence. Lin Feng's divine sense swept out and saw that in the stone room, Fox Yanyan directly shed her human form and turned into the true form of a fire fox. The black flames in her eyes continuously jumped, and behind her, 7 fox tails continuously swayed. The tips of the tails also ignited with black mysterious heaven tribulation flame. Seeing this, Lin Feng came to a realization. 7 tails. Has she already recovered to the mid-stage Demon King realm? Fox Yanyan was using her own demonic power to refine the black heaven tribulation flames that had entered her body with great difficulty. From the looks of it, she wanted to subdue the black heaven tribulation flames in one go. Lin Feng shrugged his shoulders, stretching out a finger and pointing in the air. Vigorous mana passed through the air, directly landing on the top of Fox Flame's head that had transformed back to its original form. Surging purple chi entered Fox Yanyan's body and helped her refine the black heaven tribulation flames. At this moment, Fox Yanyan had reached the final stage of refining the black heaven tribulation flames. She was only one step away from success, but this last step was extremely difficult. It was more difficult than before, but with Lin Feng's help, it was like walking on flat ground. The 7 tails behind her were extremely huge, like raging flames. Soon, a new tail grew out. It was like a small flame, but at this moment it was growing rapidly. It looked like it was about to become the same as the other 7 tails. This demon was about to recover her strength as an 8-tailed fox king, a late-stage demon king. After refining the black heaven tribulation flames, her strength had increased. After cultivating for a period of time, she would be able to break through to the immortal demon soul realm. In the process of helping her refine the flames, Lin Feng did not stand on ceremony and took about half of the black heaven tribulation flames. The calamitous black fire kept devouring everything it came into contact with. Even Lin Feng's magic power was no exception. Lin Feng could only use the celestial realm barrier's Dharma art to block it with the realm power. Even so, the black fire kept devouring and disintegrating the realm power, requiring Lin Feng to repair it. As expected of the demonic fire that is on par with the nether evil flame. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. He found something unusual about the black heaven tribulation flame in his hand. There was an imperceptible but extremely strange magic power mixed in the black fire. It was clearly separated from the black heaven tribulation flame and did not merge, but it was not easy to detect. It was as if it had merged into one. If Lin Feng had not used the celestial realm barrier to directly touch the black heaven tribulation flame, he would have been fooled. This was also Lin Feng. If it had been anyone else, they would not have been able to study the black heaven tribulation flame. Their magic power and divine sense would be directly devoured by the black heaven tribulation flame. Only the realm power of the celestial realm barrier could touch the demonic fire for a long time, and they finally found the problem. This magic power was not the demon power of the demon race, but the magic power cultivated by the human race's Taoist technique. Silently, it was hidden in the black heaven tribulation flame. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth revealed a strange smile, as expected. The first time he had seen Fox Flame, Lin Feng had found that the black heaven tribulation flame in her body was a little unusual. The power of the profound heaven tribulation flame was very special. This type of flame was accustomed to devouring and burning all things to strengthen itself. Not only could it devour the magic power of cultivators and the demonic power of the demon race, but it could also devour the other 6 types of supreme flame. However, the black heaven tribulation flame in Fox Flame's body was a little strange. It was in a semi-dormant state. The true fire's power had been fighting against Fox Flame's demon power, but it had not displayed its most terrifying devouring ability. Now it seemed that he had found the source of the problem. The magic power mixed in the black heaven tribulation flame was very strange. It had condensed into a solid form and was actually in the shape of a flame. It was hidden in the black fire as if it had merged with it, but it actually existed independently. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. This thing's power is very familiar. Haha, I get it. It's the great sun glass fire cultivated from the Mahavairokkana Sutra. Chapter 5:17. The fire-like magic power hidden within the profound heaven tribulation flame was shockingly the great sun glass cleansing flame cultivated from Buddhist magic power. It was a pure and flawless Buddhist fire that was completely transparent. Although it wasn't one of the 7 great true fires of the world, its quality was above that of the unmoving Wisdom King's fury flame. Generally speaking, the most difficult problem for people who wanted to control the mysterious heaven tribulation flame was refining their own magic power. However, if you used your own magic power to refine it, it would be devoured by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. If they failed to refine it, their magic power would become fuel for the mysterious heaven tribulation flame, making it stronger and stronger. As a result, it became more and more difficult to refine, falling into an endless cycle. That was why very few people had been able to control the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. On the other hand, the great solar glass flame itself wasn't very powerful, but it had a special characteristic, and that was that it was stable and unshakable. It had the true meaning of Buddha distinguishing one's true self and being free and immortal, so it was extremely difficult for others to refine it. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame devoured everything to strengthen itself, but there were always exceptions. The great sun glass flame was one of the few things the mysterious heaven tribulation flame couldn't devour. Its destructive power couldn't compare to the mysterious heaven tribulation flame, but the mysterious heaven tribulation flame couldn't do anything to it. Fox Flame had obtained the great sun glass flame, which was why it had been able to subdue the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. However, the problem was that the great sun glass flame came from the Vairokkana scripture, which had been lost for many years. Who had cultivated this flame, and why had it been given to Fox Flame? If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to see through it. However, Lin Feng had the complete Vairokkana scripture. As long as he was willing, he could cultivate the great sun glass flame himself. Thus, he was very sure that there was a problem with Fox Flame's great sun glass flame. It was a version that had been modified by someone. It had been fused with the demon race's cultivation method, but after fusing with the Buddhist Dharma, it didn't seem out of place. In order to do this, at least 2 conditions had to be met. First, the person who had modified it had to have a very high cultivation level. Second, this person had to have cultivated both the demon race's cultivation method and the Buddhist Dharma to a very high level. In essence, both were peak cultivation methods that were deeply in line with the world's great Tao. In essence, both were top cultivation methods that were in line with the world's great Tao. If Lin Feng hadn't carefully analyzed it with the help of the heavenly realm barrier's divine abilities and magic power, he would have inevitably fallen into the trap if he had casually put away the profound heaven tribulation flame. Lin Feng couldn't help but suspect that Hu Yanyan herself might not have known, but the fact that she was picked up by Tunten and Shi Tianhao was completely set up. After Tunten showed up at the Desolate Sea Grand Assembly, it was not difficult for people to find out her background. Her grudge with the Blackwater mysterious Ming clan and the Fox clan was no secret. The Celestial Fox Great Sage had asked Lin Feng to leave the Fox Flame on the mountain, and Lin Feng had sensed that something was strange. But before carefully exploring the mysterious Heaven Tribulation Flame, the Great Sun Glass Flame was hidden inside and not easy to find. Lin Feng hadn't figured out what was going on, so he let it be. No sacrifice, no gain? Lin Feng smiled. I'm afraid you've suffered a double loss. Lin Feng raised his palm and chopped down in the air. The celestial barrier Dharma power took effect once again and directly separated the great sun glass fire from the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. Now, let's see who is behind this. Within the transparent firelight, a figure gradually appeared. It was a middle-aged monk in a Kasaya robe. His body glowed with Buddhist light and he looked solemn, but there was clearly a demonic aura within the Buddhist light. Lin Feng raised his brows. Oh? A demon race cultivator of the Buddhist Dharma? The middle-aged monk calmly looked Lin Feng in the eye and slowly said, Master of the Celestial Gate, you live up to your reputation. I was hoping for a fluke and was impolite. Lin Feng stared at him and said slowly, 4,000 years ago, the Great Thunder Sound Temple's Great Sun Buddha scripture was lost, but you managed to cultivate it. Did the Great Sun Buddha scripture get lost in infinite wasteland, or did you cultivate Buddhist Dharma in the Great Thunder Sound Temple? The middle-aged monk put his palms together and said, I'll talk to the Celestial Gate Master in detail the next time we meet. As he spoke, his figure actually began to gradually disappear. The transparent great sun glass cleansing fire's intensity also began to weaken and was about to be extinguished. Lin Feng said indifferently, It's too late to leave now. The heavenly boundary barrier suddenly changed and the sealing power of the boundary turned into an invisible giant hand, directly grabbing the glass heaven flame and forcefully stopping it from retreating. The middle-aged monk didn't waste any more words. He was originally sitting cross-legged, but he suddenly stood up and punched at Lin Feng from afar. When this punch was thrown out, a feeling of supremacy and dominance was immediately revealed, shaking the heavens and earth. This was the power concept of the Mahavairokkana scripture, the Great Lane Temple's supreme scripture, the 5-direction Rulai scriptures, which was the strongest in terms of combat power. The strongest combat power of the Buddhist Dharma was also the general principle of the Great Sun Buddha scripture, the Great Sun Buddha Palm. It was as if the Great Sun Buddha had descended to the mortal world, pointing at the sky and drawing the earth, saying that he was the only one in the world, the divine land, the strongest martial arts divine power of the human cultivation world. The punch had the power to shatter heaven and earth. In an instant, the explosive power almost shook off Lin Feng's heavenly capture. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Good move. In the boundary power of the heavenly boundary barrier, an earthen yellow figure with a majestic aura appeared and formed a seal with both hands. The powerful dermic power of the heaven-bearing seal suppressed the middle-aged monk. Although the Great Sun Buddha Palm was strong, the middle-aged monk was only a condensed dermic power and divine will. It couldn't even be considered a divine power or dharma body. Facing Lin Feng's seal that could suppress 10 lands and bear the weight of the 9 heavens, He could only be suppressed and couldn't move. The glass heaven flame, spirit heaven flame, was completely extinguished, but it wasn't that the other party had successfully escaped. Instead, it was completely sealed by Lin Feng. The middle-aged monk's expression was calm, and his divine will returned to nirvana. His last thought flashed. Master of the Celestial Gate. We'll meet again, soon, on a wasteland in the demon realm's infinite wasteland. A monk dressed in gray was walking slowly. This monk looked very young, only in his teens. He was extraordinarily handsome and had delicate features. He wore a somewhat tattered monk robe and stepped on the rough ground with his bare feet. The young monk stopped and looked up at the sky. 5 balls of light flashed in the sky, and 5 monks slowly walked out from the light. 4 of them stood in the east, west, north, and south directions, while the last one stood in the center above the young monk's head. The 4 monks in the 4 directions were shrouded in Buddha light. The one in the east was a calm and emaciated monk. His skin was dark and he was so skinny that he looked like a bag of bones. However, above this skinny monk's head, Buddha light shot out and condensed into a huge ancient Buddha in the east. It was pure gold and glowed with blue light. The ancient Buddha sat on a throne carried by 8 elephants, holding a Vajra scepter and a bell. It was the image of the unmovable Buddha. On the west was an old monk. He was rather old, and his face was full of wrinkles. 2 long white eyebrows drooped down, and even his body was a little hunched. Buddha light shot out above the old monk's head and condensed into a huge Buddha in the west. Its body was also golden, but the light it emitted was red. The Buddha sat on a lotus flower and a full moon wheel. The throne below it was carried by 8 peacocks. It held a lotus in its right hand and a bell in its left. It was the image of the unmovable light Buddha. On the north and south sides were 2 young monks. One was expressionless while the other had a smile. Buddha light shot out from their heads and condensed into 2 Buddhas. In the south sky was a Buddha sitting on a lotus flower. In front of the lotus flower was a full moon wheel and a throne carried by 8 horses. The Buddha held a rui bead in his right hand and a bell in his left. He was the life Buddha of the 5 directions Buddhas. The Buddha light in the north sky condensed into the image of the unmovable light Buddha. He held a pair of Vajras in his right hand and a bell in his left. The throne was carried by a long-horned sangsang bird. The 4 directions Buddhas surrounded and guarded the center. In the center stood a middle-aged monk. He was the monk who had interacted with Lin Feng earlier. Although his dharma was dignified and his body was enveloped by Buddha light, only the Buddha light above his head did not condense into the image of a Buddha. A handsome young monk dressed in gray stood on the wasteland. He raised his head and smiled at the 5 monks above him. Seems like there are gains and losses. The middle-aged monk in the center was the first to speak. The master of the Taoist sect lives up to his reputation. Not only did he discover the great sun-colored glass fire, he even sealed it. I can't retract my Buddha power. It's very likely that he obtained the great Sun Buddha palm imprint. Although there are only 3 forms of the imprint, it's still in his hands. The young monk in gray smiled. It's fine if it's only 3 forms of the imprint. The great Sun Buddha scripture is incomplete, which is why you haven't been able to condense the great Sun Buddha body. If the master of the Taoist sect can help to complete it, it'll be a great merit. I can't ask for more. He raised his head and looked at the young monk in the south. What about you? The young monk in the south smiled. It's all under control. Although it's a little unexpected that the master of the Taoist sect would return the Wudong tree heart, his eldest disciple, Xiao Yan, has also headed to the Wudong forest with the 2 phoenixes. Perhaps it's for the pure yang fire of the phoenix race? The young monk in gray shook his head. There might be some other changes. The middle-aged monk in the sky looked at the young monk in the south, who had manifested as Buddha. He frowned and said, "Why did you choose such a collaborator? He can't accomplish anything, but he's good at spoiling things. He's arrogant and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If I were you, I'd crush him with a finger. The young monk chuckled and said, Humility is empty, so is arrogance. What's there to care about? The skinny monk in the east suddenly said, Vairocana, you're angry. Silently, the middle-aged monk in the center said, My cultivation is indeed not there yet. Let's not discuss this for now. We still have things to do. The young monk in gray smiled and patted his bald head. The 5 monks in the middle of the 4 directions in the sky descended and retracted the Buddha light into their bodies. On the other hand, their bodies gradually turned into light shadows. The 5 figures walked toward the young monk in gray and became one with him. In the end, the young monk was the only one left on the wasteland. It was as if the Buddha and the 5 monks in the 4 directions had never appeared. Time is running out. The young monk in gray smiled and continued forward, walking on the wasteland step by step. Chapter 5:18. On Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng sealed the power of the great sun glass fire and smiled. So, I have to thank you for the gift. Buy one get one free. Other than the Xiantian Calamity Flame, you also gave me the Vairocana palm imprint. However, when Lin Feng scanned with his consciousness, he was stunned. Maha Kasyapa imprint, Subhuti imprint, Ananda imprint. What is this mess? Although he had never truly seen the Vairocana palm imprint, this martial art's divine ability was renowned throughout the heavens. Its fame spread far and wide, and there was no one in the vast 1,000 worlds who did not know of it. Although the 10 forms of the Vairocana palm imprint had been lost, the world knew about it. The 10 seals were the fundamental imprint, Great Thousand imprint, Infinite imprint, Formless imprint, Bodhi imprint, Maha imprint, Sekya imprint, Wisdom fist imprint, Dharma boundary imprint, and Vajra realm imprint. Among them, the Maha imprint and Bodhi imprint were called this, not the abbreviation of the Maha Kasyapa imprint and Subhuti imprint. Speaking of Maha Kasyapa and Subhuti, Lin Feng thought, in the records of Buddhism, they seem to be one of the 10 disciples of Buddha. Ananda is also one of them. According to legend, in ancient times, the great wilderness changed, and the Buddha became a Buddha. He opened altars to preach and founded the Buddhist sect. There were countless people who listened to Buddha's teachings, and the 10 most outstanding people were called the 10 disciples of Buddha. The 10 disciples comprehended the great Tao of Buddhism together, comprehending the state of nirvanic freedom and emptiness. They saw their true selves and proved the state of emptiness. These 10 people were Maha Kasyapa, Muganlian, Faluna, Subhuti, Shariputra, Rahuluo, Ananda, Upali, Aniluddha, and Jayajanyan. Buddha existed only in the heart. With Buddha in the heart, everyone could become a Buddha. Therefore, the great Thunderclap monastery didn't worship Buddha himself, only the golden bodies of these 10 people. 4,000 years ago, Yuwang Heavenly Sea destroyed half of the great Thunderclap monastery, causing the golden bodies of the 10 disciples to disappear. Other than the 10 golden arhats, the Tempest Temple had also suffered many losses during the war between the two worlds. If not for that, the Allied forces might not have been able to eliminate the Tempest Temple so smoothly in the Buddhist extermination war. Lin Feng analyzed the 3 forms of Vairocana Buddha's palm that he had obtained from the middle-aged monk, and gradually came to a realization, so that's how it is. This person doesn't have the true Vairocana Buddha scripture's general principles, nor did he learn Vairocana Buddha's palm. I'm afraid he searched the world by himself and found the lost golden form of Maha Kasyapa, Subhuti, and Ananda. Then he deduced the 3 divine palm mudra by himself by analyzing the principles of Buddhism. Lin Feng carefully sensed the concept of power of the 3 mudra, Subhuti, and Ananda seals. It seems right yet wrong, yet it's of the same origin. It can be said to be the new Vairocana Buddha's palm, but also the fake Vairocana Buddha's palm. However, after Lin Feng compared it with the Vairocana Buddhist scripture that only lacked the general principles, he could still be sure that the three madra deduced from the golden bodies of Buddha's disciples were inferior to the true Vairocana Buddha's palm in terms of power. But no matter what, this person relied on his own strength to recreate this divine art and the complete Vairocana Buddhist scripture. His willpower, cultivation, and wisdom are all worthy of praise. At this moment, Lin Feng was interested in whether he could deduce the true Vairocana Buddha's palm based on these three madra. "I'll try it in the library when the time comes." Lin Feng smiled and turned his eyes to the other side, where Fox Yen, who had returned to her original form, was still practicing silently, completely unaware of what had happened before. At this moment, a voice transmission crystal in Lin Feng's hand responded. The source was the Fox Clan Master of Infinite Region, the nine-tailed great sage of Celestial Fox. Lin Feng picked up the voice transmission, and a flat and dull voice came. "Sect Master Lin, I'm sorry for what happened before. I'm here to apologize to you. My daughter Yen didn't know anything, and I hope Sect Master Lin can forgive me. I'd like to offer a piece of Yuan Shin ancient skin that I personally refined as an apology. Please accept it." The Celestial Fox Great Sage was very straightforward. She lowered her posture as soon as she came up, and directly asked for compensation and forgiveness. The Yuan Shin ancient skin that she mentioned was naturally not from an ordinary mirage demon. It was at least left behind by a big demon who had achieved the immortal demon soul realm. Both the Mirage Demon and the Fox Clan were demons who were proficient in illusory techniques, and they were originally at the immortal demon soul realm. The ancient skin of the Mirage Demon, after being personally refined by the Celestial Fox Great Sage, was bound to be extraordinary and deeply understood the essence of ethereal transformation. After refining the Black Heaven Calamity Flame, Fox Yen would basically be able to achieve the immortal demon soul realm. With the Black Heaven Calamity Flame in hand, her strength would be even more extraordinary and her potential would be astonishing. Such a disciple was worth the Celestial Fox Great Sage paying a great price to redeem her. Lin Feng did not respond to the Celestial Fox Great Sage, but asked instead, "Who was that monk?" The Celestial Fox Great Sage was silent for a moment before replying, "I really don't know." That day, that young-looking monk came to my Qingqiu mountain, and the mountain illusory formation was nothing to him, and he came to me without asking. That person's origins are a mystery, and he cultivated the Buddhist techniques of the Tempest Temple as a demon. I couldn't see through his strength, but there is no doubt that he was above me. Lin Feng frowned slightly. "Oh, a young monk?" The Celestial Fox Great Sage said, "That's right. He took human form and he was a teenager. It seems that the middle-aged monk from before was not himself, but a clone." Lin Feng thought about it. Buddhist cultivators see the heart and discern one's true self, and are known as the nemesis of the demon fox's illusory technique. It is not surprising that he could come to Qingqiu Mountain. After we met, this person used the Black Heaven Calamity Flame in exchange for my daughter, Yen, to carry out a plan for him. The Celestial Fox Great Sage said frankly, "I agreed to it out of greed, but my daughter Yen really didn't know anything. Please forgive me, Sect Leader Lin." An imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of Lin Feng's mouth, and he said flatly, "I will not make things difficult for your daughter, but it is not so easy to write off this matter. Celestial Fox Great Sage, you colluded with others to plot against me, and this debt is not something that can be repaid with the skin of the Yuan Shin." Silently, the Celestial Fox Great Sage said, "What request do you have, Sect Leader Lin?" Lin Feng said calmly, "Celestial Fox Great Sage, if you have the time, you can come to my Yujing Mountain for a chat." The Celestial Fox Great Sage came quickly, and with Lin Feng's permission, she went up Yujing Mountain and met Lin Feng in the main hall of Xianmen Tianzong, the Celestial Palace. She was in human form, and her appearance was that of an extremely ordinary middle-aged woman, but she gave off an easygoing and amiable feeling. Even though her facial features were ordinary, there was a different kind of beauty about her, and she was very good at looking at her. The more one looked at her, the less ordinary she seemed. But Lin Feng knew that this was the form of the celestial fox great sage, and not her natural human form, but that was not important. Lin Feng said something, and the celestial fox great sage suddenly fell silent. There was a dead silence in the hall. Lin Feng sat on the main seat, looking relaxed and unhurried. Silently, he waited for the celestial fox great sage's reply. After a long time, the celestial fox great sage finally said slowly, "I agree to sect leader Lin's request." Lin Feng smiled slightly. "In that case, the celestial fox great sage can take your daughter back." The celestial fox great sage let out a long sigh and left the mountain with Fox Yen, who was still a little confused. Fox Yen looked around and saw no one on the top of the mountain. She looked at the cloud bridges in the distance, and the mountain rocks that were burning with raging flames. A faint and complicated feeling emerged in her heart. Lin Feng watched the celestial fox sage and Fox Yen leave Mount Yujing. He chuckled and said, "Evil monk, you schemed against people and left behind such a small amount of things. Do you think you can just let it go? It's just the end of the first round. Our game has just begun." Fox Yen's matter didn't cause the slightest commotion on Yujing Mountain. It wasn't until Tunton sneaked into Fox Yen's stone room to cause trouble that he discovered that the fox had already left Yujing Mountain. All the arrangements had been made, and Lin Feng wasn't afraid that the celestial fox great sage would go back on his word. After the mother and daughter left the mountain, Lin Feng no longer paid attention to them and continued to refine his magic treasures and study his Dao technique. Time flew by. Everything on Yujing Mountain was as usual. Shi Tianhao was still in closed-door cultivation, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing were also working hard, and the second-generation disciples were also working hard. Soon, Xiao Yan returned to Yujing Mountain with Lin Tong, accompanied by 2 phoenixes of the Great Saint stage. One of them was Fei Yi, and the other was an expert from the Phoenix race who had reached the second level of the indestructible demon soul, the primordial true spirit stage. However, like Fei Yi, he was very polite in front of Lin Feng. On one hand, it was out of respect for Lin Feng's strength, but more importantly, it was because of Lin Feng's help to persuade Lin Tong to go to the infinite wasteland vast land. After thanking Lin Feng again, the 2 phoenixes extended a sincere invitation to Lin Feng to visit the parasol tree forest. Lin Feng agreed with a smile and chatted with them. Lin Feng didn't ask much about the negotiations between the Phoenix race, Jing Huanho, the Great Zhou Empire and Taishu Temple, and how the previous conflicts were handled. Fei Yi and Lin Tong didn't stay for long and quickly left. Xiao Yan sent the guests off on behalf of Lin Feng. After the 2 phoenixes left, Lin Feng smiled and patted Lin Tong, who had pounced on him and refused to come down. "All right, Tong can come down now." Little Lin Tong cried, "No, no, Tong misses Grandpa so much." Lin Feng hugged Lin Tong and felt the changes in the spiritual energy in her body. Indeed, it was thicker and more agile than before. Just as Fei Yi and the others had said, the ceremony was very beneficial to Lin Tong while healing the parasol tree sovereign. When Xiao Yan, who was in charge of seeing the guests off, returned, he couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Lin Tong clinging to Lin Feng like a little koala. Lin Feng glanced at him, then looked at little Lin Tong in his arms. He smiled and said, "Tong, look over there. Someone's getting jealous." Little Lin Tong blinked and looked at Xiao Yan. She sucked on her finger and hesitated for a moment before saying, Then Tong will come find Grandpa later." She slid down from Lin Feng's body and flew towards Xiao Yan. "Daddy, how many times have I told you, it's Godfather?" Xiao Yan, who was secretly laughing, suddenly felt a headache coming on. However, He didn't dare to show it in front of little Lin Tong. He picked up the little girl and looked at Lin Feng helplessly. He said quietly, "Master, you can't always be like this." Lin Feng smiled nonchalantly. He looked at Xiao Yan and asked, "How was your trip?" Chapter 519. Xiao Yan hugged Lin Tong and patted her back with a smile. "Tong-er, you've benefited a lot from the Wudong Tree Sovereign's treatment ritual. I didn't make this trip for nothing either." As Xiao Yan smiled, two milky white flames suddenly lit up in his eyes. It was the pure Yang True Fire, one of the 7 supreme flames in the world. It was the legendary ancestor of all flames, the origin and ancestor of the heaven primordial world's flames. It was the purest flame that could fuse with many other flames and subdue all evil. Silently, the pure Yang True Fire danced. It was not as dazzling as the true Sun Fire, nor was it as violent and ferocious as the evil Nether Flame. However, it had a serene and pure feeling of power. It looked ordinary but contained endless profoundness. Lin Feng smiled. "This is the pure Yang True Fire. If it were the black heavenly tribulation flame, Xidagarba True Flame, or the red lotus karmic fire, you'd be in trouble again." Xiao Yan also laughed mischievously. His current gold core stage cultivation level, in theory, the limit of the type of true fire he can control is 3 kinds. Any more and he will become a sick cat again because of the conflict between the true fires before and the backlash will bite back at him. The pure Yang True Fire was the ancestor of all flames and had the mystical effect of fusing other flames. That was why it could barely coexist with the evil Nether Flame, True Sun Fire, and Nanmingli Fire. It was precisely because of this that Lin Feng let Xiao Yan head to Infinite Wilderness Vastland with ease. This way, when you carry out the fusion of 3 types of true fire, the difficulty of activating the celestial fire lotus will also greatly decrease. Lin Feng said. Xiao Yan listened and nodded his head over and over. "Master is right, it is precisely so." In the past, when he was at the early stage of golden elixir, he had to be extremely careful when fusing 2 types of true fire, as though he was walking on thin ice. If he was not careful, the fusion might fail and he might even hurt himself. Even if it succeeded, it would take a long time to prepare. At the same time, it would consume a large amount of magic power. It might even drain one's essence, qi, and spirit. After one firmament flaming lotus, one would lose all their combat prowess. After Xiao Chun advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir, the situation became much better. When he reached the late stage of the golden elixir, perfection and leakless, he could fuse the 2 great true flames into the firmament flaming lotus. Whether it was Lin Feng or Xiao Yan himself, they had initially predicted that Xiao Yan would need to form his nascent soul before he could control the dual flaming lotus freely. However, he was able to do it in the late stage of golden elixir. This was mainly because of an unexpected situation. Xiao Yan had mistakenly absorbed the Nanmingli fire, causing him to suffer a backlash. However, it was also in the process of combing the true fire in his body, slowly tempering his own magical power, and stabilizing his realm that Xiao Yan's control over the true fire had improved to the next level. This was a blessing in disguise. After Xiao Yan advanced to the late stage of golden elixir, his control over the dual flaming lotus had exceeded his expectations. It could be considered as a disguised form of sharpening a knife to cut firewood. However, just like how the power of the dual flaming lotus and the triple flaming lotus was not as simple as 2 + 1 = 3, the difficulty of controlling them was also not a little bit higher. Now that Xiao Yan's cultivation was at the late stage of golden elixir, it was still like walking on a tightrope if he wanted to fuse 3 types of true flames to activate the firmament flaming lotus. The difficulty was extremely high, the consumption was high, and there was a high risk of failure. If there was a slight mistake in activating the firmament flaming lotus, Xiao Yan would be the first to be injured. At the same time, the more true flames he fused, the stronger his power would be, and the more severe the backlash would be. Now that he had the pure yang true fire, if he combined it with the other two types of true flames to activate the triple flaming lotus, the difficulty would be greatly reduced. The safety and stability would be greatly improved, and the success rate would be much higher. However, Xiao Yan, you have to be aware of this. Lin Feng reminded him, even if you have the pure yang true fire, it will only increase your success rate of fusing the three types of true flames. Fusing the three types of true flames with the firmament flaming lotus will still consume a lot of your dermic powers. If you fuse the three types of true flames, you might end up like you did on Cloud Traversing Peak back then. After one strike, you will be exhausted. Xiao Yin nodded with a solemn expression. Master, please rest assured. I understand. Then, he smacked his lips and revealed a regretful expression. What a pity. I now have 4 types of true flames. If I could fuse them, what kind of power would that be? Xiao Yan also knew that he could only think about it in his mind, and could not put it into practice. Now that he was at the late stage of the golden elixir, maintaining the 4 types of true flames in his body, without fighting, was already his limit. The risk of fusing the 3 types of true flames was extremely high, and fusing the 4 types of true flames had no chance of success at all. If he dared to do that, he would be courting death. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yan with a faint smile. Brat, you're even more greedy than Tianhao. You have such a big appetite. If you're not afraid of being stuffed, I still have a 5th type here. He flipped his palm, and within the layers of space barriers that looked like transparent crystal walls, a ball of black flames was wrapped. It was filled with an ominous and terrifying aura, as if it could devour the heavens and earth, and bring the end of the world to all things. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. This is the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame? Lin Feng smiled. That's right, it is the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame. How about some? Xiao Yan opened his mouth. After a long while, he smiled awkwardly. We'll talk about it later. Lin Feng shook his head and said seriously, it can't be too late. You have to use it when you form your nascent soul. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned. Master, I don't quite understand. Lin Feng smiled slightly. It doesn't matter. You'll naturally understand when the time comes. Don't worry too much. I'll plan for you. Before that, just focus on figuring out the Tao of the 4 symbols heaven opening book. Hearing this, a thoughtful expression appeared on Xiao Yan's face. He nodded and said, Yes, Master. Disciple will focus on comprehending the Tao. After talking about business, Xiao Yan suddenly realized something. By the way, Master, we've already obtained the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame. What about the fox flame? Lin Feng turned to look at him. Why? You really like her? Xiao Yan pursed his lips. What are you talking about? I'm just curious. If she successfully refines the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, I'm afraid she won't be far from the immortal demon soul realm. Indeed, but whether she can really succeed depends on her, Lin Feng said indifferently. She has already returned to Infinite Mainland with the Sky Fox Great Sage. Xiao Yan revealed a relieved expression. His days of being in the ice and fire dual heavens were finally over. Lin Feng asked with a smile, After you guys set off for Infinite Mainland, I cut off the dermic powers and divine senses on you. Tell me what happened after you guys arrived at the Parasol Forest. Although he had left dermic power imprints and dharma bodies on Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi and the others, it was to protect his disciples. Lin Feng would only split his divine senses to check on them when they were in trouble. Lin Feng did not care about what they usually did. Xiao Yan immediately told Lin Feng about what happened after Marquis Jing Huanhe left, and how he and Lin Tong followed Fei Yi to Infinite Mainland. There was nothing special about what happened. The Phoenix race and Parasol race were very moral and would find a way to return the favor they owed to Lin Feng. Although the pure yang true fire was extremely precious, Xiao Yan got what he wanted without much effort. The Wudong Tree Emperor had been waiting for Lin Tong's arrival. As soon as Lin Tong arrived, the ceremony began. Through the ceremony, the Wudong Tree Emperor effectively treated his chronic illness, while Lin Tong received a ceremony that was almost like a baptism, benefiting him greatly. However, the Parasol Tree Emperor's injury was not completely severed. It was only temporarily controlled. Xiao Yan said, according to the Phoenix race and Parasol race, after a period of time, they have to perform the incantation ceremony again. However, the time interval is very long. One round of incantation can last for at least 1,000 years. Lin Tong, who was also the Wudong Tree Heart, was previously lost in the Kuan Peng Vault. For thousands of years, the Parasol Tree Emperor relied on its cultivation to endure the pain. After hearing that, Lin Feng did not say anything. Instead, he pondered for a moment. During these 1,000 years, the Parasol Tree Emperor should be recuperating in peace and not fighting anyone again. That's why it can last for more than 1,000 years. If it were to fight with experts of the same level, it would be hard to say how long it could last. Lin Feng asked, "Do you know why the Parasol Tree Emperor was injured?" Xiao Yan shook his head and was rather troubled. "I'm very curious too. However, the people there are very strict and I can't find out." However, looking at the reactions of the Phoenix race and Parasol race, they were very awkward when the Parasol Tree Emperor's injuries were mentioned. Therefore, I speculate that it shouldn't be a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Lin Feng nodded his head slowly. The so-called man-made disaster, to put it bluntly, meant that the Parasol Tree Emperor had been injured by someone. However, he did not know who was so ferocious. The Parasol Tree Emperor's cultivation probably had to be calculated in terms of tens of thousands of years. It was already an unparalleled demon at the third level of the indestructible demon soul, the astral soul as one realm. Although it had a mild temperament, it was extremely powerful. Even if the Parasol Tree Emperor paid the price of being injured to kill the other party, the person who injured it was still extremely powerful. If the Parasol Tree Emperor was at a greater disadvantage, it would be almost unheard of. As Lin Feng and Xiao Yan were chatting, they suddenly felt something. They turned to look at the other side. A crack appeared in the void there, and Kong Nanhua walked out from it. "Nanhua, what's the matter?" Lin Feng saw Kong Nanhua's solemn expression and immediately asked. Kong Nanhua answered, "Sect leader, I just received news that a large number of experts from the Shi and Yu clans were sent out to kill Tianhao's parents." Lin Feng squinted his eyes. "Tianhao's parents, they came out from the void battlefield?" Kong Nanhua nodded. "They came out from the void battlefield and contacted people close to their clan, trying to find out about Tianhao's whereabouts. In the end, the news was leaked, and the people close to them in the Shi clan were imprisoned. Then, a large number of Yuanying patriarchs from the Shi and Yu clans were sent out to capture Tianhao's parents." Kong Nanhua took a deep breath and said quickly, "The couple was outnumbered and was forced to retreat to the void battlefield to hide. Now that they've entered, it'll be even more difficult for them to come out. Moreover, it's said that Tianhao's mother was severely injured, and her fate is unknown." Chapter 520. The Shi family and the Yu family are very arrogant. Xiao Yan's face turned cold when he heard the news from Kong Nanhua. He was shocked and angry. Lin Feng asked silently, "Is there any news about Tianhao's grandfather?" Kong Nanhua answered, "His whereabouts are still unknown. Only Tianhao's parents came out of the void battlefield." After saying this, Kong Nanhua didn't say anything else, because he discovered that the current Lin Feng was extremely terrifying. Even though he still looked calm and collected, right now Lin Feng's entire body seemed to be surrounded by a calamitous aura, as if a calamity was about to befall the world. Xiao Yan looked at Lin Feng and felt warmth in his heart. In his memory, his master was really angry, and he had only seen it twice before. The first time was a long time ago, when Wang Lin had just entered the sect. Xiao Yan and the others were surrounded, and Xiao Yan was seriously injured in order to protect Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao. The other time was when he had just absorbed the Nanmingli fire and suffered the backlash of the true fire. At first, Lin Feng thought that he was injured. Lin Feng looked calmly in the direction of the desolate sky valley and said softly, "Tianhao is still in seclusion, master, I'll go." Xiao Yan cupped his fists and said with a stern expression, "Little junior brother is in seclusion now, and his parents were killed. The culprits must pay the price. As the eldest senior brother, I can't sit and watch my junior brother's family get hurt. This is also a provocation against me, Xianmen Tianzong. I can't let it go." Lin Feng looked at him and nodded. With a wave of his hand, purple gas gathered in the air and turned into a scroll. Immediately after, Lin Feng tapped the scroll with his finger, and the originally blank scroll quickly rolled up. The scroll kept vibrating in mid-air, and an incomparably terrifying aura was emitted from it, as if the world was about to be destroyed. Lin Feng handed the scroll over to Xiao Yan. Then, his eyes flashed, and a stream of light flew out from his left eye into the space between Xiao Yan's eyebrows. Then, Lin Feng said lightly, "Wipe out the Yu family." Xiao Yan smiled, revealing his snow-white teeth. "Master, please rest assured. From the day I found out about junior brother's past, this disciple has been looking forward to this moment." Lin Feng said, "I'll leave the Shi family to Tianhao. I'll leave the Yu family to you." After Xiao Yan received his orders, he immediately descended the mountain. His first destination was the capital of the Qin dynasty, West Tomb City. The Yu clan's estate was here. He would first wipe out the Yu clan's estate in West Tomb City, then wipe out the Yu clan's ancestral land. West Tomb City's history was even older than Tianjing City, and it was currently the most majestic city in the Divine Land. Walking on the streets of the city, one could even feel the heaviness of the road beneath one's feet. The entire city seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious power concept. It was as if it had gone from ancient times to the present day, as if countless years had merged into a single moment. As one of the four great families of the Qin dynasty, the Yu clan had built a mansion in the west of West Tomb City. It occupied a vast area and had a grand aura. Even the servants guarding the door were incomparably capable. In the past, this was one of the most revered places in West Hill City. But a year ago, the prestige of the Yu clan suffered a heavy blow. In the Sand Continent City, Kunlun Mountain, and the conflict with the celestial sect of Xianmen, their halberds sank into the sand. This caused a devastating blow to the overall strength and reputation of the Yu clan. On the street opposite the mansion, someone looked at the magnificent mansion. "That's the mansion of the Yu clan in the capital?" He stopped for a slightly longer time, and the servants at the entrance of the Yu clan's house immediately looked over. "Yu clan's mansion, unauthorized people are prohibited from snooping." That middle-aged man was also an early-stage golden elixir cultivator. Even though he was a loose cultivator, being scolded by a servant, he immediately felt a little embarrassed. But he looked at the tall gate of the Yu clan, and just from the gate, he could feel a strong fluctuation of magic power. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment, but still didn't dare to behave atrociously. The Yu clan had been beaten to a pulp by Xianmen Tianzong, but it wasn't something he could afford to provoke. He resentfully turned around and left, coldly snorting, "You've already been beaten like a stray dog by Xianmen Tianzong, and you're still so overbearing? Do you think this is the past?" The middle-aged man was about to take a step forward, but suddenly felt that his body couldn't move. A bone-piercing chill spread throughout his body, and he shockingly discovered that his body was covered in a layer of blue frost. The bone-piercing cold completely froze all the magic power in his body, and he couldn't circulate it at all. His flesh, spirit, and soul were also frozen. Even the thoughts in his mind gradually slowed down, and his thoughts seemed to be frozen. A white-clothed youth appeared in his line of sight and coldly looked at him. "Anyone who offends the Yu clan will end up like this. My Yu clan has been rising for close to 10,000 years, and we've experienced countless storms. We've long been used to ups and downs. Even if Xianmen Tianzong is rampant for a moment, and has committed many unjust deeds, they will still be destroyed. Even if they are destroyed, my Yu clan will still be Yu clan, and will stand tall here. It's not something that a loose cultivator like you can gossip about behind our back." The middle-aged man struggled and roared. "I only said a few words, and you actually want to take my life," the white-clothed youth coldly said. "You want to court death yourself, don't blame me." Aside from the white-clothed youth, there were other white-clothed Yu clan members behind him. They had all returned from outside, and were preparing to return to the mansion. They just happened to bump into this middle-aged man. At this moment, they were all coldly staring at this person who made them burn with anger, being frozen by the Xianming true water. For the current Yu clan, Xianmen Tianzong had already become a taboo, and an existence like a reverse scale. Anyone who mentioned him would trigger a wound that was deeply branded on their soul. "But I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said." A voice suddenly sounded from the side, and immediately after, a golden flame suddenly lit up like a needle. The golden needle exploded on the blue frost that was about to be frozen, and forced back the white-clothed youth's Xianming true water. The crowd of Yu clan disciples shivered in fear. "Who is it?" Without waiting for them to react, a majestic manna spread out, and everyone was already thrown off their feet. Only the middle-aged man who had just escaped stood blankly in place. The white-clothed youth was the one with the highest cultivation among the crowd of Yu clan disciples. He lay on the ground and struggled to get up. However, he instantly felt dizzy in his mind, and his whole body was in so much pain that it felt like it was being burned by a raging fire. He was aghast in his heart. He didn't expect that in just a moment, his soul and flesh would both suffer heavy injuries. He wanted to use the Xianming true water to suppress his injuries, but he didn't expect that the golden elixir in his body was dim, and he was actually completely unable to circulate the Tao technique of the Xianming art. "Who is it? Do you know where this is?" The crowd of Yu clan disciples were both shocked and angry. What appeared in front of him was a ball of golden fire. Countless needle-like dazzling flames radiated in all directions, making people not dare to look directly at it. Like a small sun, it appeared in front of everyone. A voice came from the golden fire. "Xianming true water? Then it should be the Yu clan's direct descendant." The white-clothed youth said angrily. "You know this is the Yu clan's territory, and you still dare to behave atrociously? It's the Yu clan. This means that I didn't accidentally hurt anyone." Within the golden fire, there was a faint silhouette of a person. He walked step by step towards the Yu clan's mansion, which was not far away. "I'm looking for the Yu clan." The people nearby all looked at this scene in horror. "What's going on? There's actually someone looking for trouble with the Yu clan? The Yu clan has really declined." Previously, Xianmen Tianzong killed a few of their Yuanying ancestors, and in the end, they didn't even dare to make a sound. Now, someone actually directly came to their door. This time, their prestige will be swept to the ground. That's not necessarily true. This person's cultivation is obviously not that high. At least, he's not a primordial soul stage expert. As long as it's not a primordial soul stage expert looking for trouble, the Yu clan will not be destroyed. After all, there's a late-stage Yuanying ancestor overseeing this place. That's right. The Yu clan's mansion has set up a powerful formation, and with a late-stage Yuanying ancestor presiding over it, it's impossible for anyone below the primordial soul stage to break through. This person saw that the Yu clan is in trouble and came to beat them when they're down, right? But he doesn't know that a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Coming here so rashly, I'm afraid he's going to be badly injured. As expected of an old aristocratic family, they can't be insulted. The Yu clan's primordial soul stage expert, Lord Xianming Yu Xintao, is still here, so the Yu clan won't fall. Even if Lord Xianming doesn't come out, there are still more experts in the Yu clan's ancestral land. This person can't overturn the heavens. The white-clothed youth lay on the ground and sneered. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Now any Tom, Dick, or Harry dares to act wildly in my Yu clan. Today, I'll use your blood as a warning to all those who don't open their eyes. But, that golden flame on his body that seems to be the true sun fire. The white-clothed youth suddenly opened his eyes wide. Apart from the demon clan's three-legged golden crow, in the human cultivation world, the only one who has mastered the true sun fire is, at this moment, the golden flame in the sky like the scorching sun had already arrived in front of the Yu clan's mansion. A violent aura spread out, sweeping away all who dared to block it. You're courting death. From the depths of the Yu clan's mansion came a powerful fluctuation of power. The void at the entrance of the mansion split open, and a white-clothed middle-aged man walked out from it. Impressively, he was a Yuanying cultivator. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, the golden flame in front of him suddenly soared. The golden true sun fire turned into a ferocious tiger full of killing intent. With a roar, it rushed towards the white-clothed middle-aged man with an early-stage Yuanying cultivation. The white-clothed middle-aged man only had time to condense a little Xianming true water in front of him to block the golden tiger. With a loud bang, the magnificent gate of the Yu clan's mansion was directly turned into ruins. The white-clothed middle-aged man was buried in the ruins, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Everyone who witnessed this scene sucked in a breath of cold air. Who is this person? He's too fierce. He sent his opponent flying with one move. An early-stage Yuanying cultivation couldn't even fight back. Even the Yu clan's gate was destroyed. This time, the Yu clan is really in trouble. The ferocious tiger formed from the true sun fire faced the sky and roared. In the golden flame, a figure gradually became clear. It was a tall and straight youth with a handsome face. He was dressed in purple clothes and a black robe. He raised his head and coldly glanced at the Yu clan's mansion. Yu clan, your creditor has come. Chapter 521. The magnificent Yu clan mansion occupied a vast area and had a majestic aura. It had already stood in West Hill City for a long time. But at this moment, at the main entrance of the mansion, the building that looked like a gate tower was directly destroyed. It was as if someone had shaved off a piece of hair from a majestic and imposing man. It wasn't that his hair was shaved off, but the rest of his hair was intact. Only a piece of hair was shaved off like a scab. Instantly, his aura and appearance all became a joke. The Yu clan mansion suddenly lit up with a blue light. Countless runes and incantations gathered to form one array after another. A large number of array diagrams combined together, turning into a huge array that emitted an ancient aura that could seal everything in ice. It was as if a giant beast had been awakened. It was angry and wanted to tear apart all life in front of it. The ferocious tiger formed by the sun's true fire was calm and fearless. It rushed towards the Yu clan mansion and let out a shocking roar. The tiger's roar created the wind and violently attacked the ice-blue array. The person controlling the true fire of the sun was naturally Xiao Yan. He looked at the Yu clan mansion in front of him with a cold expression. Those who are not of the direct bloodline of the Yu clan, leave immediately. Otherwise, death or injury will be disregarded. When these words came out, the crowd was in an uproar. Someone recognized Xiao Yan. That's the eldest disciple of Xianmen Tianzong's sect master, Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan? Hasn't he not shown himself for a long time? Why did he suddenly appear here? Xianmen Tianzong? Didn't they win the previous battle with the Yu clan? I heard that it was the Yu clan who provoked them first and then rebuffed them. But this doesn't mean that Xianmen Tianzong will leave it at that. They are here to settle accounts. Then why didn't they come earlier? Why did they only come after almost a year? Who knows? Perhaps the Yu clan has done something to make them unhappy? Xiao Yan turned a deaf ear to the crowd's discussion. His expression was cold as he walked straight towards the Yu clan mansion. An old voice came from the huge ice-blue spell formation. Young man, you, Xianmen Tianzong, have gone too far. Do you really think that my Yu clan is weak and can be bullied? The voice contained powerful magic power that shook the surrounding area. Only a late-stage Yuanying patriarch could possess such powerful magic power. The onlookers were all shocked. It's the late-stage Yuanying ancestor of the Yu clan who is in charge of West Hill City. He was actually the first to be alerted. Facing a late-stage Yuanying expert, Xiao Yan sneered. Your Yu family knows very well what they have done. I just want to ask you, did you have a part in attacking my junior brother's parents? After a moment of silence, a voice came from within the formation. That's the Sure family's matter. My Yu family has been on good terms with the Sure family for generations, so I'm just lending you a hand. Xiao Yan interrupted him coldly. Enough. There's no need to say any more nonsense. It's enough for you to admit that you were involved. Then you can go die. The voice of the late-stage Yuanying patriarch of the Yu clan also turned cold. Ignorant junior. You're only at the late-stage golden elixir realm, yet you dare to be so arrogant. I'll capture you and then ask your master how he teaches his disciples. Before he finished speaking, a giant that was tens of feet tall rushed out of the blue spell formation and stepped on the void. This giant only had one arm and only one eye on its face. That eye was like a water droplet that was condensed into ice crystals. It emitted a powerful force that could freeze the entire world. Once the giant appeared, an extremely cold aura almost enveloped West Hill City. It directly activated West Hill City's defense, which limited the power of extreme cold emitted by the giant to a certain area. When the overbearing power was still intimidating in all directions, the onlookers had no choice but to retreat in order to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Those who refused to retreat were instantly frozen into ice sculptures. This late-stage Yuanying patriarch of the Yu clan directly manifested his heaven and earth avatar. He wanted to capture and kill Xiao Yan in one fell swoop to avenge the humiliation that the Yu clan had suffered today. Junior, your Xianmen Tianzong has gone too far. You've killed and injured many of my Yu clan's experts. Today, you still dare to cause trouble at my doorstep. I'll capture and kill you first. Consider it as collecting some interest from you, Xianmen Tianzong. In the future, I'll make you pay one by one. Xiao Yan sneered. You only have yourself to blame for provoking me, Xianmen Tianzong. Now you actually dare to bite back. Can your skin be any thicker? Or is it because you're used to being domineering that you've become stupid? You think only you can deal with others and others can't fight back? He stared at the heaven and earth avatar in the form of a one-eyed giant, grinning with a hint of ferocity. To tell you the truth, 1 year ago, I couldn't participate in the Battle of Kunlun Mountain. I couldn't personally teach you bastards who dared to invade my Xianmen Tianzong a lesson. I've always regretted it. Today, I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with you. If you want a reason, go find someone else. Xiao Yan clenched his fists and stretched them out in front of his chest. Today, I only want to do one thing. Raise your Yu clan to the ground. The golden tiger let out an earth-shattering roar, merging with Xiao Yan's body. In an instant, a piercingly cold, murderous aura erupted. The violent, murderous aura made even his late Yuanying opponent shiver. This kind of murderous aura is no weaker than the Hua clan's Azura tactics. Xiao Yan stared coldly at his opponent's heaven and earth avatar, pouring all of his energy into the tiger formed from the sun essence fire. After practicing the 4 divisions heaven-opening scripture, Xiao Yan merged his own understanding of the Tao of heaven and earth into the azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, and black tortoise. At this moment, he was in the form of the white tiger, in charge of killing, looking down on the world, killing all living beings. Unlike the vermilion bird when he fought against Tao Yaoyao, the current Xiao Yan was in the form with the strongest offensive power among the 4. The Cyclops Dharma idol shot out a thick beam of blue light from its single eye. Everything within its line of sight turned into black ice crystals, which then shattered into powder. Xiao Yan was fearless. The white tiger formed from the sun essence fire set off tens of thousands of golden flames that fiercely collided with the blue beam of light. A late-stage golden elixir cultivator was going head-on against the heaven and earth avatar of a late-stage Yuanying ancestor. The blue and golden light continued to collide. Some of the sun essence fire was frozen, but there were also blue beams of light that were blown apart by the golden flames. The fierce battle between the 2 sides had already attracted the attention of the other experts in West Hill City, and they all came to watch. A few burly men dressed in the attire of the northern tribes looked at the battlefield from afar. They were from the northern militant royal court and had accompanied the northern militant right sage prince to the great Qin dynasty. At this moment, the right sage prince was meeting with the Qin emperor in the palace. Some people accompanied him, while others were resting in their residences. They looked at the ferocious Xiao Yan and sucked in a breath of cold air. He's going head-on against a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. This Xiao Yan is indeed worthy of being the eldest disciple of the celestial sect master. However, the heaven and earth avatar of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator is very powerful. If he continues like this, he will inevitably lose. Amidst the conversation, Xiao Yan was gradually frozen by the blue beam of light emitted by the Cyclops. However, he didn't care at all. With a sneer, the golden tiger formed by the sun essence fire suddenly disappeared, followed by a raging bluish-purple flame. The violent and tyrannical power covered heaven and earth, and a part of the sky was dyed bluish-purple by the terrifying netherworld evil light. The terrifying demonic fire condensed and turned into a purple tiger, which was even more ferocious than the golden tiger formed by the sun essence fire. The netherworld evil light condensed into the image of the white tiger, which was the most complementary. Kill. As Xiao Yan roared, the white tiger formed by the netherworld evil light had already forcibly torn apart the blue beam of light, and its violent power was fighting with its opponent. At the same time, the sun essence fire and the Nan Mingli fire also condensed into the image of the white tiger. The 3 tigers surrounded the Cyclops and launched a fierce attack. With the pressure of the 3 great true fires, even the late-stage Yuanying ancestor of the Yu clan, who used the heaven and earth avatar to activate the Xianming true water, couldn't gain the upper hand for a while. This kid actually has 3 kinds of true fires at the same time? Everyone from the Yu clan was shocked. There are too many evildoers in Xianmen Tianzong. Not only that Shi Tianhao, but this Xiao Yan is also so ferocious. No, we can't let him go on like this. Today we must kill him here. The other people couldn't help either. 2 Yuanying stage cultivators tried to join the battle to help their own clan members. And right now Xiao Yan's eyes are already completely red from killing. The white tiger formed from the 3-headed true fire is looking disdainfully. Other than that late-stage Yuanying stage Yu family ancestor, other people will die if they touch it, die if they touch it. The Cyclops suddenly let out an angry roar and made a seal with one hand. The cold air in the surrounding space suddenly retracted. Next, the blue light in the Cyclops' eye dimmed and disappeared. However, the seal he made with one hand pressed towards Xiao Yan. In the center of his palm there was a black hole. The endless cold air seemed to want to freeze the world and make everything return to the Ice Age. Cambrian Dark God Seal. Among the divine abilities derived from the Yu clan's Xianming art, this was the top spell. It could freeze everything in the world and make everything return to the ancient times. Xiao Yan's expression was cold and indifferent. He gently put his palms together, and the white tiger formed by the sun essence fire and the Nan Mingli fire returned to his side. They quickly compressed into two extremely condensed flames and then began to fuse. His 10 fingers moved nimbly as if they were picking leaves and flowers. In an instant, one spell after another was sent into the true fires in his palms. In an instant, a palm-sized golden lotus appeared in his palm. In the center of the lotus, the red and blue light transformed into a flower's stamen, gently swaying. The terrifying firmament flaming lotus faced the opponent's Cambrian dark god seal. The extremely hot and extremely cold forces collided, directly shattering the void. West Hill City's defensive formation was activated with an even stronger force. It firmly blocked the aftermath of the collision and protected West Hill City from damage. After the firmament flaming lotus collided with the Cambrian dark god seal, it turned into a monstrous golden sea of fire. Countless flames spread in all directions. Every flame that came into contact with the surrounding black ice spirits exploded violently. Continuous explosions, endless explosions, billions of flames and billions of ice spirits collided and exploded. The cold air was like dark clouds being dispersed by sunlight. It rolled and retreated. The ice spirits that were like black holes were blown into pieces. A large amount of ice was evaporated by the raging fire. The entire area around the Yu clan's mansion was enveloped in a vast amount of water vapor. It was as if there was a big fog. The white water vapor dissipated and a huge figure appeared in the void. When the Yu clan's disciples saw this figure, their faces revealed a relaxed expression. That was their clan's ancestors' heaven and earth form. However, almost at the same time, the huge figure suddenly knelt down slowly. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.